When the lights are out and you stumble in the dark, you kept pushing on, but then you went too far. When your ship has sailed and all your dreams are lost, everything is wrong, you feel like it's your fault. Just remember, I will be there for you, baby. Remember, there's nothing out there to get you, don't forget it. When life throws lemons, just call on me. Just call on me. Just call on me. Just call on me. You're stronger now than you ever been. You gotta leave now, it's time to catch the wind. You will climb up high and look through the clouds, and when you're feeling low, I know you'll bounce back. Oh, and just remember, I will be there for you, baby. Remember, there's nothing out there to get you, don't forget it. When life throws lemons, just call on me. Just call on me.
The racing world has had their eye on the Circuit de Spa-Francorchamps a lot over this last week, whether it be the 24 hours of Spa for iRacing last week or the 24 hours of Spa in real life yesterday. Here tonight, the Majors Series will hold the 2.4 hours of Spa here at the legendary Spa-Francorchamps circuit. Good evening, everybody. My name is Frank Marchese. Thank you very much for making us a part of your evening. And alongside me tonight, he's done all but I think one of these endurance races with me here this season, Nate Seifgard. Nate, it's been a while since you've been here. This is the final endurance race of the year for these guys. We go NASCAR racing next time out. We go Formula One after that. And still a lot of great action to come here. But this is a racetrack where these guys really have no excuse over these last couple of weeks as to not having practice and not having track time here.
You probably had close to a month of track time here with the Spa 24. Of course, the GT series on iRacing has also been here in the past couple weeks. So these guys are probably tired of Spa.
Mike's cutting out just a little bit there, Nate, but I'm sure you'll have that fixed and ready.
I'm sure they were probably.
So as we're working our way through this practice session here, we're not that far to go. Let's take a quick look at the standings coming into tonight's race. Ozzie Milwane currently sits atop the standings at 127 points. At 7 points, this is probably the biggest points lead that anybody has had thus far in the American Sportsman division this season. Justin Garrick and Joey Haynes tied for second position in the point standings with 120. Chris Sherburn not that far behind. Brian Halleck rounding out the top five. Jacob Mink, who had a heat win back at Crandon last month, is in the mix as well, with just the top 10 drivers sitting up over 100 points. Halleck jumping Mink last time out for the Crandon World Cup. So there is a lot still to play for here as this season winds down. Again, this will be the final endurance race of the season for these guys. We're running the Southern 500 next time out on the 22nd of August. After that, right around September 11th, that area is going to be the Italian Grand Prix, a full-length Formula One Italian Grand Prix in the McLaren Formula One car. Then after that, it's a couple of split weeks. You get the for us in the Sportsman, the American region, you will get the Snowball Derby from Five Flags and the super late models. And then you'll get the second runoffs after that at Road Atlanta. And then to close out the season will be the Indy Japan at the Twin Ring Motegi Oval Circuit. So still a lot of racing action left here this season in the Majors Series. We'll take a look at the team standings here really quick. Forge Racing Sport number one. They are leading that championship table right now. High Class, Sector 5, and Evolve currently sitting in the same positions they were in going into the Crandon World Cup. Forge right now is looking decent with Brian Halleck right now up in second on the timing pylon, but it is Evolve right now that has the momentum in this race thus far, or in this practice session thus far, and of course we'll see how that plays out during the race. But Nate, if the mic issues are fixed, we do have a little bit of time left here, and we are in the early morning hours. This race is going to start at night, and it's going to progressively move into the daytime. Current sim time is right around 5:30 in the morning. That means low track temperatures and high speeds tonight.
Fix this time? Let's try it.
Yeah, sounds good.
Okay. All right. Yeah, of course, the temperature on the track is about 66 degrees. The air temp's at 65, and the sun we expect to rise in about 30 minutes time. So that sun is going to rise, and we're going to have about 2 hours roughly of some sunlight appearing but only about an hour probably where that sun is actually hitting the racetrack. So this track is going to evolve quite dramatically through the race. We'll probably see track temps of close to about 75 to 80 by the time we finally get done tonight. But these guys are going to have a way different racetrack starting this race and when they'll finish it.
Yep, and this is the first time since all the way back at the season opener at Daytona where we're going to see some nighttime endurance racing. At Daytona, it was the day going into the night. Now here at Spa, it's going to be exactly flip reversed from that, as we have 6 seconds left in this practice session. You're seeing the fastest man on track right now. That is the Lamborghini of Michael Broomhead for Evolve, and he will be the fastest man coming out of this practice session. We're about to flip over into qualifying, and a lot of fun slated here tonight. It's going to be quite a show.
They should be, and these guys, like we kind of alluded to earlier, these guys will have plenty of practice so far, but this is the time to show up and time to get it on.
Or actually, I'm wrong. Pre-qualifying has already taken place, so we are getting set here, gridding up to go here for tonight's race. Do apologize. I you know what? I did skim over that in my notes, so my apologies there. So it'll be Brian Halleck. We'll take a look. Brian Halleck will be sitting on the pole here for tonight's race. Ozzie Milwane sitting just to his outside. That is the front row. Row 2 will go to Justin Garrick and Michael Lane, with row 3 going to Nathan Medina and Joseph Holman. Gerard Gilbert and Robert Gamble will make up row 4, with Richard McClure and Chris Sherburne in row number 5. Bryson Schutte and Joey Haynes will make up row number 6. Row 7 going to Michael Broomhead and Spencer Todd. Robert Deloche and Maurice Gamillion will make up row number 8.
Robert Covey and Roger Shank will roll off 17th and 18th, with Timothy Klaus at 19th. Andy Spicer will roll off in the 20th spot with Aaron Gear in 21st. David Gargago is going to roll off 22nd with Matt Gilder in 23rd. Andrew Malinowski is going to roll off 24th with Stephen Paulson in 25th. Greg McKinney in 26th. Ernie Ludwig will roll at 27th tonight with James Daugherty in 28th. Javier Perez Torres will roll off 29th with Jonathan Diggs in 30th. Joshua Mertz at 31st. Jeremy Morrison will roll off 32nd. Brian Sherver will roll off 33rd. Rob Courtney in 34th. Don Dolson in 35th. Ron McPherson in 36th. And hopefully I got it done in time.
Yes, you did. And because this is the endurance race, the grid will be started. The race will be starting off coming out of the La Source hairpin and down the hill. The endurance start, and all of these drivers will be pitting on this side of the racetrack. Nobody will be on the Grand Prix side of pit lane. Green flag is in the air. 2 hours and 25 minutes here at Spa-Francorchamps. We are green down at Eau Rouge. Now up Radillon. Will everybody make it through okay? It looks good so far as they make the run down the Kemmel Straight and into Lacombe.
And this is the big part of the race. If you want to make a move early, this is the time to do it, because everybody's got a slipstream battle towards Lacombe. But at the moment, at the front, it looks all steady, but the battle's off for 4th.
Yep, absolutely. As Brian Halleck is well clear here in the race lead. Nathan Medina in that number 6 BMW, the first of the BMWs here tonight. We've got rather low car counts as far as makes that are not Porsche and Lamborghini. Only one McLaren. We've got 2 Audis. We've got 3 Mercedes, a couple of Ferraris, about 5 or 6 BMWs in here tonight. So it's quite a split between Porsche and Lamborghini here tonight.
Right on that rear end of Brian Halleck here. So, 2 hours and 25 minutes, you think, oh, I got plenty of time to make a pass, but this is the best opportunity to do it, because you might not know when you get a chance to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. The top 4 right now currently working away. That is the 2 Lamborghinis of Milwane and Halleck up at the front. Garrick and Medina. Garrick in a Porsche, Medina in a BMW sitting right behind him, and that number 62 for Sector 5, or pardon me, at the 6 is Medina. Michael Lane is in the number 62 for Sector 5. As everybody looking clean so far is heading through Blanchimont We're seeing a lot of these Lamborghinis now battling, as I believe that was Joey Haynes that might have run wide through Blanchimont. Actually, it was Richard McClure in the 84, my apologies, as they head into the bus stop for the first time tonight.
And these guys are all single file here, probably kind of taking notes of what everybody's doing here, because at the moment, nobody's really making a whole lot of passes here. It looks like everybody's trying to settle into this race at the moment so far.
And very rare for one of these endurance races. No offs anywhere on that first lap. Covey may have taken that final corner a little bit too wide, but other than that, nothing too dramatic happening as we see up the hill of Radion. As Justin Garrick right now sitting behind the man he is trying to chase down in points. Again, Ozzie Milwain 7 points clear in the championship. Coming down towards the end of it, you know Garrick is going to want to take as much of that out as he can, but 2.5 hours here can mean absolutely anything can happen as we look side by side through Lake Combe. Chris Sherburne trying to defend from Spencer Todd.
Yeah, and this is the part of the race, like you mentioned, where everyone is going to start to, you know, if you got a battle with someone on the points, you want to know where they're at and try to advantage yourself that advantage that you can get. So at the moment, Milwain's doing everything he needs to keep Garrick behind him, behind him, which is very important for his championship and the race here.
Absolutely, and you saw through the outside that Chris Sherburne losing that spot in that number 135 Porsche 911. Second spot he's lost this lap. Here is Bryson Schutte also back here as well in that number 8 Lamborghini, getting a little bit of a shove from the 84 of Richard McClure going through Fagnes. And now that will open the door for Michael Broomhead, who we know has pace. Again, fastest car in the practice session.
Yeah, that's just the case. Broomhead kind of squeezed off on the apex curve there. So now this is the case where if you're on board with Broomhead, okay, I got to get a draft into the bus stop here, but he's a little far back to even try to think of a move. But the thing is how far back he is. That's a lot of aero weight getting put on that car. You can see how wide he ran just because of the disturbance of the air here. And like you said, just too far back, purely because he was just too far back at the exit of Stavelot, and plus that dirty air that he hit in Blanchimont.
There's going to be a lot of aero push in Blanchimont all night long, as anyone who ran the 24 hours at Spa last weekend will absolutely know and attest to. There's going to be a lot of aero wash coming off of these GT3s here tonight. As you see the track conditions right now, we're about 5:45 in the morning right here. At this point in time, Nathan Medina has gotten around Justin Garrick in that number 6 BMW. Garrick now trying to hold off Michael Lane. And one of the biggest passing points here, not just tonight, but in any form of racing here at Spa-Francorchamps, that long run down the Kemmel Straight going into Lake Combe.
Yeah, a lot of people don't realize how great that is because you're uphill all the time. So the run that you get out of Radion is very important up there. Plus, the fact I think the wind tonight is actually benefiting. It's a headwind, I believe, if I remember right. It's a southwest wind. So yeah, that is a wind coming down the Kemmel Straight, which makes the slipstream more effective here. So that's another thing to think about here at this race tonight.
And this is kind of the race we expected, again, with how much track time that these guys have had here at this racetrack. Yeah, a hectic first lap, but really no major mistakes. We take a little look back, and there's the first one. It's going to be Roger Shanks sliding way off at Pouhon. Not sure if he and Maurice Camillion had caught a little bit of contact there, but that Audi went sliding, and that could have been the result of one contact or two just braking too late going into Pouhon, and that has sent that number 950 of Roger Shank all the way down into the 13th position.
And that's just an unfortunate case there by the looks of it, but that's happened so easily on that curve. That curve is serrated. There's actually a groove in the drainage there, and it looks like he just caught it enough to the point where it just really upset the car and the balance there on that right rear.
We'll try to take a look and see what happened there. with Shank will go up high above, or actually maybe not that high above. We'll try to find something that works. We'll see. There we go. Oh, nope, that was just he lost it. Either too much rear braking or he braked too late going into Buhan, and that's what sent him around.
Well, yeah, the braking is very important there too, but if we get the opportunity at some point here later on in a couple laps, that curve is very interesting because it's not like any other curves around here. There's a big drainage groove right in the center there, and if you get that tire just right on there, it makes the surface patch of that really rough, and it makes it very unstable on that curve.
Let's see, one of the Ferraris there, that is Aaron Greer, pardon me, in the number 512 Ferrari, playing defensive, getting around Timothy Klaus, and then running out wide at the first quarter of Lecombe. Something that is very, very easy to do. A little bit further ahead, that is David Gargaro Jr. trying to fend off an attack from Andy Spicer in the number 24. We've had one driver jump to pit road. That is Andrew Milanowski. Milanowski right now, here he comes. That's out of the endurance pit. And, oh, he's having a big problem. There is the 52 of Milanowski as he hit that wall hard coming out of the endurance pit. And that's another thing these guys are going to be fighting. That's not the pit road exit that they usually use here. And that will certainly mess with some guys if you're not used to it.
Yeah, because nobody ever really uses it. You only use it for the endurance races now, so that's something that these guys are going to have to get used to. You got to be careful. I mean, a lot of people in the Spa 24 that oh, look at this!
Oh, that's big slide there up front. That's Ozzie Milwane sliding through the bus stop. He's going to give the position back, and boy, is he going to lose some more as Ozzie Milwane did one of two things there. And we'll take a look and see what happened, but that was a huge moment for the number 114 Lamborghini.
I was just about to say he is really close, and I thought he was going to peek out, but instead he tucked in and he clipped the grass there on the left-hand side.
We're looking at it right now. He did the same, you know what? He did the same exact thing that I did during our first attempt in the 24-hour. Unfortunately for him, he didn't jump over the rumble strip and flip the car, pretty much end it. So a big save there for Ozzie Milwane. Is worth noting, the fog is incredibly thick here as we take a look back. This is Timothy Klaus in one of the Udox Audis, one of the two Audis on circuit tonight. He's had it off somewhere. Take a look and see what happened to him. This is going into the La Source hairpin. And, oh, one Audi hits the other on entry into La Source, and that's what sends Joey Haynes around. Or pardon me, it was what sends Timothy Klaus around, as I think Joey Haynes has had an off as well. He has in that 318. That's going down Rivage. See what happened there with Haynes. It's coming out of Lecombe down into Rivage, and back end steps out. That's an odd place for that to happen because you're usually done braking by that point.
If I had to guess, he has his ABS turned really low. Oh,
never mind. No, go ahead. You're good.
I was about to say his ABS, I'm guessing, was at a really low setting, and his brake bias is rearward, because you do use the brakes there to a degree to help rotate the car. So I'm guessing he just had a little too much in there and just rotated around on him.
That's down right at the midpoint of Rivage, down the hill. As they head through Blanchimont now, heading back up towards the main straightaway. That is Ernie Ludwig ahead of him in the number 26 for Kinetic. And that mistake there is going to cost Joey Haynes from all the way down from 8th position down to 23rd. So that's a big drop for Joey Haynes in the 338.
Chance in the race where you got to work to get those positions back if you're like that, because the field is so condensed still. There's not a whole lot of separation. So this is the worst time in a race to ever make a mistake. You know, if you make a mistake, let's say an hour from now, the penalty for that is a lot less. And so if you're going to make a mistake, do it later in the race, just not right now.
On the flip side to that too, you could say, well, if you make one early, yes, it's a lot to recover, but at least you have time to recover that. As Haynes has gotten around Ludwig. Ludwig takes a look going into Lake Combe, but doesn't have enough. Greg McEnany in the 350, he had a spin. This is going down into Pujon. On the curb and around the back end goes. Saw that a lot during the 24. Guys just getting into Pujon a little bit too deep. And there's the train of positions that he's going to lose. Pujon has been very, very, it's been nippy today over these last couple of weeks. It's been biting guys.
And there's another reason for that too. You know, I mentioned the wind earlier coming from the southwest. It's a headwind down the Kemmel Strait, but it's a tailwind into Pujon, and so that's less downforce that's being put on the rear of the car. So, you know, that's one of the most downforce intense corners on this racetrack, and the fact that you don't have as much as you think you do can cause some issues.
Absolutely could, as that's one of the Udox Ferraris about to be lapped just a mere 15 minutes into this event. Brian Halleck currently leading, just reset the fastest lap of the race at a 2:18.76. Nathan Medina behind him after the mistake that sent Ozzie Milwane flying all the way back to 6th. So it is Halleck, Medina, Garrick, Lane, and Holman, the top 5 right now, and they're all pictured on your screen here as Medina looking. Yep. That was. So Nathan Medina getting a slowdown penalty after taking Radion a little too wide. And that's a killer of a slowdown as well, because you have to, it's not one of those cases to where the natural slowness of the racetrack will bleed that time off. That's a long straightaway that you have to slow down for.
And there's no way to, effectively get rid of that penalty. And it's actually, believe it or not, a penalty for a slowdown is more intense at the beginning of a race, because the slowdown penalty goes off of your times, not the actual best times in the session. So, if you're actually at the top of the field and you've only done a couple laps, the penalty for that's a lot stricter, believe it or not. So a lot of people don't realize that. It's a nice little tidbit for you guys if you didn't know that.
I certainly did not know that. And of course, it's right after the 24 is done that I'd find that out. As Gerard Gilbert in the number 24 Ferrari. Gerard Gilbert, the 73 Ferrari, my bad, for Kinetic Racing, the lead Ferrari right now. Trying to hold off 2 Evolve Lamborghinis of Spencer Todd and Bryson Schutte. This is a battle for the 8th position on track right now. Gilbert had started up in that 7th position. Spencer Todd +5 from where he started today, and I believe that would make him the bit. No, actually, that would not. Go right back to it. Is a big slide there. That was Spencer Todd there, and they're both going to be able to make the passes stick. But Schutte runs wide coming out of the bus stop, and that's going to allow Todd to get right back around him. Or at least attempt to.
I was about to comment that he's too shallow in there, but he made it work. Both team cars do get by, just not probably in the order that he wanted to be in.
Take a look at that again as we had switched off of it just as it started to happen. They are coming out of Blanchemont. And yeah, he is right on that inside of the bus stop. They both end up running it wide. And boy, great job of both of those guys not to run into each other coming back on the track. And unfortunately for Schutte, just wasn't able to get the good enough run to be able to run away. And now he's actually been overtaken by Spencer Todd here.
You got to think in your teammates like this, there's a gap in front of Todd now that's kind of developed here. So now that's the point where it's a team race. Who do you allow to just be released here? Because if Todd's quicker, you want him to go so he has a chance to, compete with Gamble and Millwane here. If he's, just running in the back, trapped behind Schutte, that's going to do them no good. So maybe that was a team decision to pick who needs to go out in front.
It's a 3.1 second gap up to Robert Gamble, who is the lead Mercedes. I'm sorry, the second Mercedes in the field tonight. There's only three: Joseph Homan, Robert Gamble, and Javier Torres. Those are the only three Mercs in the field tonight. As we'll take a look, here is Homan for Udox, trying to chase down Nathan Medina. Has an Udox teammate of Ronald McPherson in front of him. Oh, sorry, that's Matt Gelder, pardon me. In front of him in that Ferrari. As they head down into the bus stop for the 8th time tonight. Now, if you followed the actual 24, we would be expecting pit stops in about 40 minutes from now. These guys can get between an hour and 5 minutes on a tank of fuel. The question is going to be, how are the setups as it relates to tire wear? Because we saw a lot of guys taking just front tires or not taking tires at all during the iRacing 24. And those guys were getting passed up left and right by guys who took 4 tires all night long.
And that's another thing that you got to think of too, is you said that time delta between pit stops is about an hour. It's a 2 hour and 30-minute race here roughly. So that's going to be a thing where this last pit stop, do you take it later? Do you try to pass somebody, get clean air, and try to pit earlier and go off sequence here? So that's another thing too. You don't have to worry about yellow flags or safety cars here in these endurance races, as much as we all would wish that, I think. But I think that's another thing too with the strategy here is you got guys like Garrick and Lane here. Do they want to stay trapped behind Halleck here?
Oh, there goes Lane. Wow, way to catch it. My goodness, what a save by Michael Lane.
And he just dipped the wheel on the grass there on the right-hand side. And that part of that's just being unsighted there because he had a car directly in front of him.
Yep, that's where it does get really difficult as the lead Sector 5 machine and the lead BMW. Michael Lane, a little bit of a slip through Pujol, nothing too severe, as I think Michael Broomhead has had a moment. Yep, there he is, slow out of Pujol. We'll take a look and see what happened to that Lamborghini. Back end started to step out when he turned, thought he caught it, tried to take the corner again and just wasn't settled enough and lost the back end.
And that's just a case of either A, not having enough traction control, or B, the wind caught him out there. The wind has died down slightly still, but it's still a 9 mile an hour, and it's actually shifting from the south now. So now it's a kind of a crosswind more into the entry of Puon. So that can affect, how the balance is in that corner.
Side-by-side racing through Blanchemont hardly ever works, but somehow Michael Broomhead and Aaron Greer made it work. As Broomhead comes out of the bus stop, he will fall down to the 17th position. But you gotta love the cars that actually have the position on the windscreen. That makes it so much easier. You don't have to guess.
It does make it a lot easier, doesn't it?
It certainly does. As we're working just inside the first half hour complete here at Spa, and you can see the weather has changed quite a bit from where we were at the start of this race. Brian Halleck has led from the very beginning thus far in that Lamborghini. And track conditions are certainly starting to warm up, and you can see 97% humidity as the fog has well and truly rolled in here through the Ardennes, and this is what this track is known for: completely unpredictable weather conditions.
Is that a segue? I can't tell if that's a segue to what we wanted to talk about or not.
No, that wasn't necessarily a segue, but I'm sure we can, as it was announced on iRacing that they are working on rain that should be coming out for the first build of 2022 is when they're hoping that it will be ready. And I'll tell you what, it'll make races at Spa certainly more interesting.
Absolutely, and I mean, listening to Greg West's comments, he's the VP of Development, if I'm correct, at iRacing. He had a little bit of a showcase with it for their 4-hour race that they had at Charlotte for their awareness. I'm not quite sure what it is.
It's VMS aware.
Oh, okay. But, they kind of explained it, and it's some great stuff. I'm sure we can go into more detail, of course. But basically, these bigger tracks like Spa, it'll be a really advantage because you can have it rain on different parts of the racetrack. And as well, it'll make strategy really important in these races where, it's endurance races and you don't have yellow flags. So a little bit of variability.
And from what, I'm not sure why it's taking iRacing so long, knowing that pretty much driving on the grass is like driving on the wet here. So they already have the physics locked down. I'm assuming they're just going graphically. Boom! iRacing shot. Anyway, Nathan Medina right now trying to hold off Joseph Holman, and Holman was right on the back of that number 6. Not that long after Medina had gotten that slowdown penalty, kind of fell off, but now Holman's starting to close back in on the back end of that number 6 BMW.
You got to think, when is the part where the car actually makes an advantage? Because the Beamer, it's not a real life car. A lot of people, of course, know that it's essentially a very advanced prototype from what BMW will eventually run in the future. But, the Merc is a real life car. It has real life knowledge and characteristics that some of these people can look back on and be like, hey, this is how this car handles here. So that's something to consider as well.
Did they not run these BMs in the IMSA 24 at Daytona? Real life?
Well, to my understanding, this car is just a heavily advanced prototype from what eventually BMW will release. At least that's my understanding of it.
Fair enough. I mean, this was not the BMW that they ran yesterday at the real 24 at Spa.
Correct.
This certainly was not that, as see Medina head through the bus stop chicane right now at the very end of the circuit. As we are working lap 12, Brian Halleck out to a 1-second lead over Justin Garrick, and Halleck had set the fastest lap in qualifying, the pre-qualifying for this event. Had an early send-off on the start of this race and has been untouched since then. And that number 3 Lamborghini is looking solid as a rock right now.
And he's starting to release his pace here, where he was doing 19s at the beginning of the race, trying to get the tires at a temperature. The cold track temps that we had, that makes a difference here. And he's been putting in mid-18s ever since then. So he's gotten back in that rhythm where he's back on the pace compared to most people. While Garrick, just set his fastest lap with an 18.6 in the race.
And this track, cold conditions or cooler conditions are certainly going to be the friend and beneficiary of a lot of these drivers, because that is where the pace comes out. This track will lose a lot of time in overall pace as it gets warmer. So the fact that these guys are running this race in the early morning hours here at Spa, it's certainly going to benefit these drivers as far as speed goes and as far as just overall ability to race.
And the other thing too is, this track did start completely clean, zero rubber on it. So this track, as the race goes on, will rubber in and eventually get more grip. This is a very important stage of this race for these guys because, the track is cool. You're building rubber in, and about this stage of the race, that's when the rubber phase in is the best. Now, once the sun comes out, of course the track is darker, so it'll get hotter, which means there's less grip. So that's another thing to think about. The fastest laps of the race will probably happen here in the next 15-minute segment.
As we're looking at Gerard Gilbert right now, who is right now in that lead Ferrari, and just before the iRacing 24 last week, there was a shift in the balance of power for these cars, as iRacing tends to want to do just prior to the endurance events, as the current balance of power for these cars is the exact same as to what it was for the 24-hour race. And for the Ferrari, typically the way they would adjust the balance of power is that they would add weight to these cars. The Ferrari did not get any weight added to it. Meanwhile, cars like the Porsche got about 13 kilos added to it. I know the BMW got 6 added to it. I think the Lamborghini got 6 kilos added to it as well. The Ferrari remained untouched.
That's really good too if you're doing practice for a month out, because they don't release the BOP numbers till about, I'd say a week and a half before the race happens. So if you're in a Ferrari, that's excellent news to you. If you're in a Porsche, that's terrible news for you. Haven't learned you got to put that much more weight on the car, which makes you slower, of course.
I'm trying to find it. Yep, there it is. The Audi had 3 kilograms added to it. The Merc had 3. The BM had 6. The McLaren didn't have any. The Ford GT didn't have any. Which, I mean, we know how much use that Ford GT gets. The Porsche and the Lambo both got 12 kilos added to them, and the Porsche actually had a 0.25%, as that was McClure sliding through Pouhon, and this one's going to be a little bit more dramatic as he swings way to the outside of Pouhon. Fortunately for him, does not hit a wall, but that 84 now rolling after a big moment.
And he caught that serrated bit in the curb where it drains out again. So another one, bites the dust. He put the tires just in the wrong spot. You got to really just go on one side or the other side of that curb. If you're in the middle there, it just seems like it just is an instant, loop around.
Yeah, and that's the curb on the entrance to Pouhon, as you saw that he had lost that car well before he'd even gotten into the corner. And just to finish that thought, the Porsche actually had 0.5% of its power taken away from it as well, which makes what Justin Garrick is doing right now with 12 kilos added plus 0.5% of its power taken away, him sitting in second position running 2:18s, pretty good.
Yeah, but he's getting dropped now by Halleck here. Halleck is putting in his fastest laps of the race here. 18.6 last time, but he set his fastest lap with the 18.4. Still not the fastest of this bunch, though. Actually, no, it is the fastest of this bunch, just barely.
Absolutely was, as we just saw Robert Deloche in pit road. So Deloche might be trying to split this up to where he will have to come into pit with an hour left instead of coming in with a half hour left. And now that will put him at a pretty significant tire disadvantage if that is in fact what he is trying to do. But it will also make the OCD bunch here work quite nicely, as that is Andy Spicer in the 24, slow up at the top of the hill of Radillon. Take a look and see what happened to that number 24 Porsche 911.
Oh.
David Gargaro Jr. behind him, and that was a big snap and a great job of avoiding there by Gargaro. That car, it looked like it just snapped all over the over that rumble strip, or the sausage curb at the back.
It looks like it just got super loose. He looks like he went too far to the left there, and if you go too far to the left there, it's really not a smooth surface. There's quite a big of a hump, and it just like it really unsettled the car there by the looks of it.
Jeremy Morrison in pit road in the number 75 Lamborghini. Take a look and see what happened to him, as it showed he had a moment. This is going into the bus stop. And it might be just, yeah, I think it is. It's just triggering that he was on his way into pit road. Ronald McPherson in pit road as well, towards the back of this field as the leaders head on around them. As Garrick and Lane head up Radion, trying to catch up to Brian Halleck. Garrick just set his personal best at a 1:18.53 that last time around. 2/10 quicker than Brian Halleck, so he is gaining, but Halleck has his biggest lead of the race by far at a 2.35 second advantage.
You know, we are getting to the point where we're about 20-ish minutes away from pit stops here, so now it's kind of a point where Garrick is just going to kind of keep close enough to the point where he hopes, you know, if he attacks the pit lane and does a really good job, that he has a chance. But if you're not anywhere close, you won't have the chance.
Absolutely. Is they set it on the real 24 hours. You stay on the lead lap. Anything can happen. As speaking of anything that can happen, that's Bryson Schutte down at Rivage, who has gone around. So that number 8 Lamborghini spins out of the 8th position. He'll fall down to 12th at the moment. We'll take a look and see what happened to Schutte, as this might be the same thing that happened earlier to his teammate Michael Broomhead, and it pretty much is.
So that tells me that that team is running a very distinct or aggressive ABS and brake bias pattern by the looks of it.
Set the brake bias a little bit further back is what it looks like, as Nathan Medina in the number 6 for Vengeance, I believe, has had an off at Stavolo. Let's see what happened here. This is going through campus. A little bit too far up on that curb, going through Stavolo, and yep, ran a little wide at Stavolo. Nothing too dramatic out of the number 6. The lead Vengeance Motorsports entrant. Take a look a little bit further back through the field. Here's Robert Covey battling right behind Gerard Gilbert. Now has Bryson Schutte for company behind him. As Covey in that number 72 Lambo for Howler, having a solid little run here at the start of this race. And just off to the side, that's Don Dolson coming out of pit lane. We'll get a chance here to show you why pit lane around here is so difficult to get through. Is that 54 of Michael Broomhead, who we had just mentioned before. A lot of left side damage, and I think this right here will show us why. It's coming through Blanchemont into the bus stop, and he does this. Oh, that's more like what I did. Clip the grass and up and over the curb.
That curve is super aggressive too, so it really makes life really difficult if you do accidentally hit that curb. Going back to the front of the race, Halleck did set an 18.1, but it's not the fastest lap of the race, as he must have had it off track somewhere in the lap, and that's going to come into importance later on here, because we do have a DQ limit of 50 incidents tonight.
That's, I mean, I'm not a competent driver when it comes to these, but I was able to get, I think it was 20 in a 3-hour limit, and that's a half hour longer than what these guys are going to have to go tonight. Basic point to that is, if I could do it, so could you. As I think Joseph Holman has had an off. He certainly has had a moment as Ozzie Milwane has gotten back past him. Take a look and see what happened to Homan here. He's out of campus and just running wide through campus. You're very lenient with track limits, was iRacing at campus down there at the very bottom of the hill. That's a place where you can extend. Same here at the La Source hairpin. Very generous as far as how far you can extend. A lot better than last year.
Yeah, of course, iRacing has the rule now where it's now a four-wheel off. It used to be half the car, and now it's a four-wheel off system here. And it looks like in some sections it was a little bit more lenient, so you could push it just a little bit more. I bet if we were doing the old style, I bet that 50 incident limit would be probably more into play than what it is today.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was one of the things about this racetrack is it was so difficult, not because of the track layout, but because of how tight the off-track limit was here. It was one of the big components when you came to Spa, is Robin Covey putting Gerard Gilbert under a lot of pressure right now, and I think he's getting kind of forced by Bryson Schutte as well to put pressure on that number 73 Ferrari. But yeah, those track limits here used to be the big conversation when it would come to an endurance race, because you could barely look off track and you'd get a 1X.
I mean, we just talk about how lenient they are, and I'm pretty sure all three of those guys just got it off track there. Oh, look at this!
I believe that was Schutte that went around. Yep, it was. And oh, Schutte hits the wall big time on the inside of Pujol. And you don't really see Pujol as being such a difficult part of this racetrack, but if it's not at the bus stop tonight, it's been at Pujol.
And that's just a case of zero downforce on the front end, and then along with, it seems like we keep talking about the brake bias issues with the team there. It seems like that's their number one issue they've had, and I don't think they've quite got it nailed down yet.
Let's try to run as aggressive as you possibly can. Now, he's not in danger of losing a position behind him, as that's Jeremy Morrison in the number 75 behind him. However, the car behind Morrison, Richard McClure, is of consequence to the 8 of Schutte. Not missing anything up front. Justin Garrick is starting to reel in Brian Halleck just a little bit, but Halleck still in firm control of this race, as there's Garrick going by Michael Lane right there as well. Then you have a 4-second gap back to Nathan Medina in the number 6, as traffic starting to become a factor here at the 40-minute mark. And that's going to start to really mess with some of these guys. We'll take a look at the track map. Yep, they're pretty much scattered all over this circuit.
Something to think about here, and we've kind of alluded to it earlier about the weather and how the weather is going to change here throughout this race. And we've talked about it already, the fog. Normally, fog isn't that big of a thing here in iRacing, but you got to think with how the humidity is at 97%, this fog might stick around for most, if not all, this race. And just because of that fog, the sun's not going to get to the racetrack as effectively. So track temps might stay pretty low throughout the duration of this race here.
Absolutely, as we're riding on board with Nathan Medina, showing the kind of wheel inputs that are needed here. In the fog, riding on board at least, the fog does not look nearly as bad in the car as it does in picture when we back out a little bit. But it is affecting these guys as far as grip level with that 97% humidity that these guys are facing.
Yeah, and another thing too is, the humidity, you got to think of what it does to the engine power. Does it help it? Does it hurt it? In theory, it should help it because it's more dense air, which produces more power. So that, by that logic, that everyone's probably pretty thankful for the amount of humidity that we have.
Michael Broomhead battling with Aaron Greer as Broomhead sporting a little bit more damage, and this is why. Just ran really wide. Actually, nope, that was a different incident as he just runs really wide. Coming out of No Name. Which I believe, if I remember correctly, they have named that corner finally.
Yeah, I have no idea what it's called though.
Jackie Ick's corner, I believe, is what they called it. As a big wiggle there out of that 16th place Ferrari of Aaron Greer, as Broomhead will get the run. He'll get the high line, or the outside line, going through La Source. Not going to be able to do much with it as Greer hangs on to that inside coming out of La Source, but Broomhead doesn't have the run, and now this is where you just tuck it behind and set up for the run up the hill.
And it's so tempting to go side by side up La Rouge, do it like Alonso. But, you know, it's not, of course, doesn't quite work as well in these GT cars. But the thing about it, too, is if you're so close on the run to El Rouge and Radion, you have to lift, and that hurts you down the Camel Straight here. As you can tell, Broomhead is further back than what he was at the entry. Oh, there's a little wiggle there by the Greer there.
So Greer with a little bit of a wiggle holding on to that position we were watching while you were talking about that. Justin Garrick holding on through Fanier, holding on to that second position there as he and Michael Lane were side by side pretty much all the way from Pujon to campus, as we are getting set here for pit stops for the first time tonight. You are watching the 2.4 hours from Spa for the Major Series American Sportsman Division right here on ESPN. Again, getting close to those first pit stops. We'll be right back and show them to you when we return. You're watching the Major Series American Sportsman Division 2.4 hours here at Spa-Francorchamps. We're about 50 minutes into the hour and 25-minute event. Coming up here on ESPN, we have tomorrow off. However, we got a couple of doubleheaders coming up. On Tuesday night, it'll be the MX5 Pro Series presented by UK Sim Racing. They will be at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal at 2:50 p.m. Eastern Time. Jake Sperry and Sam Cooper Bennett will be on the call for that race. The nightcap on Tuesday night will be the Western States Racing League. It'll be round number 5 of season 45 for them at Kansas Speedway. That'll be at 10:05 p.m. Eastern Time. And it'll be either Ryan Williams or Tony Trapasso with Ben Bruno in the booth for that. On Wednesday will be another doubleheader. Sim Racers Edge will be at Watkins Glen for round number 4 of their season. Myself and Tony Trapasso in the booth for that at 8:15 p.m. Eastern Time starting time. And then then about 10 minutes after that will be the Endurance for Amateurs Series. They will be at Imola for if I remember correctly, round number 9 of their season. Sam Cooper Bennett and Byron Rodney in the booth there. So we may have tomorrow off, but we have a lot coming up tonight, as I believe we have the first taker into pit road, and that would be Joseph Holman in the 999 McLaren. He was running in the sixth position, when he came in, and this is right around the time we expected the first round of pit stops to begin.
Yeah, it's about that time when we said if you want to pit and try to get an undercut, you got to do it now. So this is the start of the phase. I bet you're going to start to see people start to think, is this the time where I need to pit and try to get that advantage? Especially if your guys it looks like, well, Michael Lane did get a slowdown, but if your guys like Milwayne, who's battling really hard with Medina there, maybe that's a chance to offset yourself and try to pass in the pit lane.
That's the old classic box to overtake, and that's also a tactic that Brian Halleck can use right now as he's headed through Fanier on his way into Campus Corner. That's a tactic that Brian Halleck can use a little bit later on in the race once the field starts to get a little bit more mixed up. If it's about if it's about time to go into the pits and he sees a wad of lap traffic in front of him, he can definitely elect to dive into pit road instead of dealing with that lap traffic. You can make ground up that way.
Yeah, we did it during our 24-hour. If we were the leader and we had a lot of traffic that we were approaching, it just made sense to pit then. As look at this, they're side by side, Medina and Milwayne, and they were almost. Milwayne backed out of it though.
Smart going into Blanchemont, but you could be sure that Milwayne right here is going to be setting up. If not for La Source, he's definitely going to be setting up going up through Lake Holm. This is the closest that Milwayne has been to Nathan Medina in quite some time. Again, after the spin that almost put him well out of this race, only knocked him down to 6th. He was able to get past Joseph Holman and work his way up. Pit stops are going to be long here, by the way. Going to be looking at about 2 minutes total in pit lane and about a minute in the box, a minute 5 to a minute 10 in the box, depending upon how much damage you have and how many tires you decide to take, as Medina just appears to have gotten far enough away from Milwayne to be able to hold on to position.
This phase of the race where Milwayne's probably thinking ruined that mistake because he made it so early that everybody passed him and he kind of just got stuck as he is right now. He probably has a pace to actually be at the clip that our leaders are at, but he's just not able to even get there. He has set up 18.4 even, but he's just in this phase of the race here where he's just stuck.
Going into Pujon, a little bit of clip that inside curbing a little bit, and that can very easily upset the car. As Brian Halleck, that last time around, just noticing it now, put it in the 117s, a 117.99 for Brian Halleck that last time around, far and away the fastest lap of the race. Justin Garrick also put his personal best down, a 1:18:20. So you're right, Nate. Definitely looking like we are getting down in times.
Yeah, the fuel burn is, we have a lot less fuel than what we started at. The track temp is still at that very cool 67 degrees. And the tire wear, when it's at these temperatures, is not that bad. So these guys still have quite a bit of life in the tire yet that they can use up. As Garrick, as we talk about how fast Halleck is going, he goes 17.8.
Yep, Halleck went 17.84, resetting the fastest lap of the race, and then Garrick does a 17.82. So these top two guys of Halleck and Garrick absolutely flying here around Spa-Francorchamps. This is the final push. This is the burn the car down, because we're going to be coming into pit here momentarily. That pit window should be opening within the next 4 or 5 minutes to be able to make it on one more stop, and it's right around there as well. We're at 20. We're working on lap 24. Between 25 and 27 laps is what you can get out of these GT3 cars.
And I think these two leaders especially know how critical this is to push on these tires now, because you have the advantage. They know they're probably going to have to take 4 tires here. I'd imagine they would. So why not use it all while you have it?
And if you did run like both of us did in the iRacing 24 here last weekend, you know that, oh boy, Halleck had a big wiggle there going into Pujon, was able to recover it. But still, that's, the rear tires do not wear nearly as much as the fronts. However, if you try to double stint those rear tires, you are going to be hurting towards the back end of your next stint badly against somebody who took 4 tires on the first stop, as Medina and Milwain going at it again through Fagnes.
And that battle's very intense. You can tell Milwain has the pace advantage. He just can't get around him. I'd have to say he's got to try something into the bus stop here, because at the moment he is stuck and he just can't quite get by him.
They're both a little wide through Stavelot, nothing too severe. He's not going to be able to make the move going into Blanchemont. Just try to focus on getting the best run you can out of here in order to get him in the bus stop. Runs a little bit wide, so it's going to have to wait unless he wants to make a Hail Mary dive, which he does not make. Garrick pulling in another 0.4 of a second on Halleck that last lap. A little bit better run on exit there from Medina. Take a look at the lap time history between these two, and Milwain on all but the 2 laps ago has been quite a bit faster than Medina. You're right, Nate, just stuck.
And then, if we're going off the fuel burn that we had during the 24, this is the lap that everyone should be pitting. 25 laps was about the bingo number for everybody here. So expect wholesale pit stops here at the end of this lap, I'd imagine.
Either 25 or 26 is what it was looking like at right around the hour mark, as Halleck would be the first one to show. The closest battle on track for position is between Medina and Milwain for 4th here in this race, as these guys are running line astern right now. Not really much separating these two. Beyond that, the closest battle is going to be between David Gargaro Jr. and Joey Haynes, a 1.5 seconds apart, as Halleck heads into Fagnes. And we'll see if he is going to make his way down into the lane here momentarily. And as the sun is starting to come up here at Spa-Francorchamps, the fog is starting to dissipate just a little bit.
Watching the body language of Halleck's car, it does not look very, very enthusiastic to go through the corners, while Garrick's looks a bit better and more enthusiastic to get that front end in. So I imagine Halleck is going to take all 4 here. And like you said, it's that advantage. Do you risk not taking rear tires and saving that time in the pit lane? We're going to find out here probably this lap.
We'll see here, expecting Halleck. Yep, there he goes. Halleck's off into pit road, so the leader is in. Garrick stays out another lap, so that Porsche, we see it in the Endurance for Amateurs series as well on Wednesday nights. Those Porsches tend to be able to get another lap or two out of every better than everybody else. Garrick proving that to be the case as well in the GT3s. Both Medina and Milwane come in line astern, and this will be a very good chance to show you the pit lanes here at Spa. Now this is the, this is the Grand Prix pit for Formula One. Coming out of La Source here, this is where you would expect to go back out onto the racetrack. Nope, you follow those white lines right into a wall, which makes this endurance pit really difficult.
A lot of people hit that wall and think, oh, it's not that bad, until iRacing decides to flip you over. Some painful memories there got just brought up, but
or knock your toe out and give you 11 minutes worth of damage.
But this is an important phase here for definitely a lot of these front runners here, Garrick especially. If he can put in a solid lap here, he does have a little bit of lap traffic ahead with Gilder here, so this will be interesting to see if he can dispose of him very efficiently.
Gelder has been in and out of pit road this entire race here, so Gelder not really much of a factor in that number 69 Ferrari. Halleck, Milwane, Medina, Todd, McClure, Gargaro, Haynes, Broomhead, Greer, Gamillion, Torres, all deciding to bring it down pit road this time, leaving Justin Garrick with that race lead. You just saw Michael Lane coming out of Fanier. There in the background, Robert Gamble, Chris Sherburne, Gerard Gilbert, Robert Covey, and Andy Spicer. Also in this battle.
So Medina only takes front tires here. So Medina is going to gamble here with the strategy of only taking the front tires here, as well as Milwane.
Somebody off there, not sure who it was. That's Rob Courtney in the one and only McLaren here tonight. He was slow, big time slow, coming out of Blanchimont. And even though this McLaren did not get a weight drop, it is certainly one of the cars that is not favored. Same with the Ford GT here for the 24. Michael Lane deciding to stay out. Garrick and Gamble in. Chris Sherburne would have to assume he's in. Yep, here he comes. Gerard Gilbert will stay out. Robert Covey will come on in. Andy Spicer should be not that far behind those guys. But right now, the leader, the effective race leader of this race is going to be Nathan Medina. And I believe Ozzie Milwane did the same thing as well, because he has jumped these guys as well.
So Garrick needs to be paying attention to that information. So who do you cover here? Do you cover the likes of Medina and Milwane, or do you go ahead and just try to stay with the strategy of Halleck here? Halleck taking the 4 tires. But if I'm them, I would be taking just the fronts. Track temp has not risen yet, so.
It was very interesting to see during the iRacing 24 who did what and how bad the fall off was come the end of the run. And it was typically those that took the 4 tire stop that had the best car come the end of the run. As Garrick, we'll see what Garrick decides to do here. He's almost done with the fueling on his stop at 40 seconds. Car goes up on the jack stands. And we'll see whether or not he stays in for about another 10 to 15 seconds to whether or not he decides to take 4. Yeah, he's got to be taking 4 at this point. There's another car, I believe that was Robert Gamble, that just popped up on the jack stands as well. And yep, there goes Garrick after a 4 tire stop. Let's take a look here. This is Michael Lane, expecting him to come in right now. Yep, there he goes. So Lane able to come in on lap 27.
This is important for the race right here. Halleck is on the back end of Garrick here. Let's see if he can get past him down to Kimmel Straight, though.
Let's take a look and see here. There goes Halleck. Halleck will be on the fresher tires. He'll be up to pace and makes that move fairly easily on Justin Garrick. And Garrick didn't really put much of a fight up, but that gap has shrunk from about 3.5 seconds all the way down to 7/10 as Garrick able to do one more lap than Brian Halleck. Looked to have gotten advantage from it.
That was a very impressive there from Garrick to be able to have that good of an in lap to be able to be that close there. So good job from Garrick there. That'll be interesting to see as this race progresses here if he can stay with Halleck through this run. And it'll also be interesting to see if Medina and Milwane are able to sustain the pace that they were able to have there. It looks like Milwane had a really poor pit stop compared to Medina. Medina doing a really good job either on the pit stop phase of things because he is well ahead of Milwane.
Let's take a look here. We'll take a look at the pit lane time between Milwane and Medina. 4 seconds slower overall in pit lane for Milwane. And looking at the pit stop, the actual pit stop time, Medina 41.1 to Milwane's 44.5. So Milwane all around slower than Nathan Medina on that round of stops there. And that is what's created a 4.7 second gap. So you saw Brian Halleck able to completely close the gap. Justin Garrick completely closed the gap on Brian Halleck. The exact flip reverse thing happened between Medina and Milwane as Medina able to really run away, and a fuel-only stop for Michael Lane keeps him in the lead of the race.
So 3 different ideas on what to do here. Lane with the tires, no tires. We got some with just the fronts, and we got some with just the rear with all 4 here. So this will be interesting as this race progresses, especially for Lane, to see if he's able to, as that Mertz sets off there.
There's Joshua Mertz. We'll take a look and see what happened to Mertz here in just a second. Gerard Gilbert still in pit road. He's taking 4. Brian Scrivener coming down pit lane now, just getting into the endurance pit. As Michael Lane might have taken fronts, if anything. 44.45 second stop for Michael Lane, the same as Milwane.
Fueling, I think, took about 40 seconds. So if that's front tires, too, that's a really good stop there for Lane.
Yeah, absolutely. So this race has gone from Brian Halleck and Justin Garrick to being out in front by a mile to now those two sitting in 4th and 5th unless they're deciding to double stint the rear tires at the end of this race, which would put them back out ahead. Certainly an option those guys would be willing to take. However, look and see how long it takes for them to close what is a 16-second gap up to Michael Lane. You do have to remember, though, they're going to have half the time to close that gap come the end of this race than what they have right now.
Yeah, this race is going to develop here in this next phase of the race to see who comes out on top. The thing you need to watch for in these next 5 laps, I'd have to imagine, is the lap times of Milwane and Medina compared to guys like Halleck and Garrick. Halleck running an 18.4 last lap, while Milwane's running a 20.1. So not very good lap times for Milwane there. Halleck, well, I guess Halleck did set a 19.232. So track might not be getting quicker.
It's about a second off our Medina and Halleck from Medina and Milwane, pardon me, from Halleck, as we're seeing Medina right now heading up the hill. Chasing, I believe that is Joshua Mertz. It is. Take a look and see what happened to Mertz. This is coming through Blanchimont. Runs wide through Blanchimont, and that's about the end of that. And as a Ferrari guy, it kills me to see this every second. To watch the BMWs leading this race. as we are working with 1 hour and 17 minutes left here in this 2 hour and 25-minute race. Michael Lane, your current leader right now in that number 62 BMW. It's BMW, BMW, Lambo, Lambo, Porsche, the top 5. Then you get Joseph Holman, who is the leading Mercedes, only 3 of those in the field. Holman, Gamble, and Torres, the only 3 in the Silver Arrows. Joey Haynes having a battle with Robert Covey here. Covey in 11th, Haynes in 12th. These guys about 1.6 seconds away from Gerard Gilbert, who Covey had passed on that last run. However, Gilbert able to get back around Covey, not only get around him, but be able to pull out a little bit of a lead before he had to come into pit road. It's looking like the overcut here, Nate, is going to work tonight.
And that makes sense because the fuel load is a lot lighter. So we saw there at the end of that run how quick those lap times were. We saw 17.0s there. Not 17.0s, but the high 17s. A lot of the guys are running 19-second lap times now. So that explains, a second lap perhaps. The time delta falls throughout this run here. So this will be interesting to see as the race progresses to track tempo rise. If the next round of pit stops, if that does stay that way.
See there on that lap time history, that lap 26 was a pit stop for Joey Haynes. Lap 27, a pit stop for Robert Covey, which is why you see the minute and 45-second lap time difference between the two. Closest battle on track right now, starting to heat back up in a battle that was for the race lead prior to these pit stops. Brian Halleck and Justin Garrick battling now for the 4th position. And come to think of it, these guys are in a very good spot here because these guys can race this all the way out, put fuel in the car, enough fuel just to make it the final 25 minutes, may not even need to take tires. However, the guys like Michael Lane, Medina, and Milwane are going to have to take some tires at least to be able to make it to the finish.
Yeah, they'll have to take rears. So the thought process is that they're going to take fours, just how these guys did, while these guys are at that advantage where if they do decide to just take fronts even, they're going to have that less wear on the rear for half the time there. So that's another thing to think about with these guys. Now, who's in the best position? Really, at the moment, I couldn't tell you who it is because at the moment, Milwane is lapping just as quick as Halleck and Garrick are.
Actually quicker, set a 1:19.30 last 2:19.30 last time around for Milwane. But speaking of coming up here, coming up for the remainder of this season for majors, the next time we will have a majors broadcast for you is on August 22nd. That will be for the Southern 500 in the current gen Cup cars, not the next gen that was released, what about 2 months ago at this point, 2-3 months ago at this point. It will be the current gen Cup cars at Darlington, a full-length Southern 500. As around goes Joey Haynes. That's coming out of Stavelo. I'm surprised there. That one's unique.
Unfortunately, it's not letting me pull it up there, so.
That's just back end, just came around on him. I'll take a look back here just a second. Just I'll take it back a little bit further than that, I think. Haynes, well, maybe not that far. My goodness. All right, let's third time lucky. Here's coming out of Fanier. Or this is...
Oh, Shank is slow.
We'll go back to that now. Roger Shank, yep, that's coming out of Pujon. There's a lot of damage to the rear wing of that Audi. Doesn't come into pit road, though, but Shank certainly had a big moment coming out of Blanchimont, and that's going to put him under a lot of pressure from Robert Deloche in that 235 Lamborghini behind him. Take a look and see what happened to Shank, and I can promise you we'll see this. Boy, back end stepped out at Blanchimont, tried to catch it and overcorrected hard into that outside tire barrier. Part of the reason why I wasn't comfortable running the 24 Hours of Spa last year is because all the cars did that. Didn't matter what setup you had in it. It was very, very unstable through Blanchimont in these GT3s. This year, though, was a heck of a lot better. That was kind of a reminder of last year.
Absolutely. Milwain doing a really solid job. He's approaching the back of Medina. He's closed this gap down quite a bit. And then behind them, Halleck and Garrick, they've stabled out with their gaps here, and a lot of times they're pretty stable. Halleck running those 18.7s, Garrick just dipping back down to the 19s here. So that's the phase of the race we're in. It's about the same. It's developing the same as it did the last time. Running 19s about, and they'll pick up the pace here in about 3 laps by the looks of it.
Joey Haynes has had another moment here in the 338 as he is crab walking that Lamborghini badly. And we'll take a look and see what happened here. This would have to be in Pujon as he goes around again, just as we cut to the replay. He's got his teammate Bryson Schutte behind him. Boy, that was a Lamborghini that was never ready to take that corner. Riding on board with him here. Well, he felt the back end start to wiggle a little bit and then big time overcorrected right around, and that is heavy, heavy damage. He's decided to he's decided to tow it. So that's going to be quite a bit of time to tow. Roger Shank in pit road now, as we would have expected after the big hit from him we saw. That was a hard, hard hit for Joey Haynes, and that's going to drop him from a top 10 spot all the way down to 31st.
And the thing with that, too, is, if you took just fronts on that last pit stop, the rears, like we said, are quite a bit more worn, and the fronts have a lot more grip. So if you get that oversteer and you put the wheel into the front end, that front end's going to grip, and it's going to whip around if you put too much in there.
That's exactly what we saw there with with Haynes. That was the name we were looking for. As Milwain now right on the back of Nathan Medina. Sector 5, Vengeance and Evolve represented here in the top 3. 5 different teams represented in the top 5, which is incredibly nice to see. Instead of watching one team run away with it, it is very nice to have a little bit of parity now and then. Thinking of today's Formula 1 race when I say that. Nice to see Esteban Ocon get a win. Nice to see Alpine in their first season in Formula 1 take a victory.
Watching the lap times still develop here in this 20s and 19s by the top 3, while the other 2 are coming, and they're in the low 19s, high 18s here. So about a second a lap, these guys are closing. They will be there on the back end of Milwain and Medina in about, I'd say, 8 laps or so, which is going to be about in that mid phase of the run where we're going to start to see those rear tires start to fall off of Milwain and Medina.
And Milwain has been exponentially quicker than Medina. That would lead me to believe that Milwain took fronts and Medina didn't take anything, because you could see Medina 26, 27, 23, 20, 25 there over his last 5 laps. Milwain 4/10 quicker, 2.5, 7/10, 4/10, 8/10. That leads me to believe that Milwain at least took front tires while Medina didn't take anything. And this is exactly what I was talking about. You are going to pay a serious price if you try to double stint these tires.
Yeah, this is a bit critical phase for the race for Milwayne here, because if he does not get by Medina here and he gets caught up by those two coming up pretty quickly, he's going to really feel it here, because they're going to pass him, and then their strategy option comes a lot more open if they do that.
He's in a situation where he is going to have to take 4 tires coming up for this final stint, as that's a big dive from Ozzie Milwayne. Plenty of room given, and Medina, thanks to the switchback, is going to be able to maintain that position. So Medina will hold on for at least another moment, and you can see coming up onto the front straightaway in the background there, Halleck and Garrick not that far behind. Milwayne really needs to get a move on, because he is hemorrhaging time to the 2 cars behind him.
Milwayne has to pass him on this lap in order to even have a chance at the win of this race, because you just mentioned it, they are coming at an exponential rate. Medina almost in the 21s that lap. So this is just destroying Milwayne's race if he does not get by here down the Kemmel Straight.
He's got to run. We're riding on board with Nathan Medina right now, and Milwayne got the run that we were all expecting him to get, trying to outbrake him going into Lacombe, and does so. Ozzie Milwayne jumps up into the 2nd position, something that I'm sure Justin Garrick and the rest of the guys following him did not want to see. Again, a 7-point lead in the standings for Milwayne at the moment, and it is looking like it is going to grow quite a bit. Closest battle on track right now is Chris Sherburne and Spencer Todd. They are heading up Kemmel right now. Spencer Todd trying to get that run, just does not appear to be close enough. He is not. So Spencer Todd, who's trying to recover from a mistake of his own, trying to get around Chris Sherburne in that Porsche. Both of those, Sherburne pitting on lap 26, Todd pitting on lap 25. We're about halfway through this fuel stint right now. Actually, no, we still have a little bit of ways to go before halfway on this fuel stint. Just heading through Pujon now. This is about as close as Spencer Todd has been to the back of Sherburne. You can see, at least in the early run, that Lamborghini a lot quicker than the Porsche.
Absolutely, and that's part of the the advantages of GT3 racing. Some cars are a lot better in certain phases of the run, and at the moment, it looks like you said, that Lambo looks pretty quick actually against the Porsche.
Absolutely. Aaron Greer in his number 512 Ferrari in pit road, making his way into the box. Joey Haynes, I believe, has gone off track again in that 338, and it looks like a little bit of a run out wide, so nothing too severe for that 338. Again, running in the 28th position. Here we have several retirements. Actually, I think we have one possible retirement. Andy Spicer right now in that number 24 high-class Porsche has been in pit road for the last 14 and a half minutes. Other than that, everybody else running on track right now, minus Aaron Greer, who came in for a stop. But other than that, everybody's still running here. And again, that will have a lot to do with the amount of track time that these guys have had over this last, as you had mentioned, month here at this racetrack.
And, Halleck and Garrick have now finally basically caught Medina there well within the crosshairs here. And Medina is not running the lap times that he was close to running earlier. He's in the 20s, 0.7s, while Milwayne a bit quicker there. He had to get past him, but he's in the 19s again. So that is critical for Milwayne's race to get by Medina. Now he's got to hope Medina holds back Halleck and Garrick quite a bit here.
Yep, and Halleck and Garrick both in the 18s. Halleck running an 18.9, Garrick running an 18.8. So that 31 Porsche a little bit quicker than Halleck's Lamborghini right now. You see the track map and you see how spread out all of these guys are. You're looking for number 62 on the track map. That is where the race leader, Michael Lane, is going through the bus stop right now. Beyond that, Michael Lane has held this 8.8 second lead that he inherited from taking front tires only on that pit stop, and has done a masterful job of holding it, running a 19.3 that last time by. So that number 62 running incredibly well here and using pit strategy to get himself from, I believe it was 4th going into the pit cycle to leading this race.
And Medina here, he kind of backed up Halleck here, so now Halleck has to try to get the run through Eau Rouge, up Radion, while Garrick has to try to go with him here, or else he's going to get held up against Medina here in this battle for position as well.
Let's see, running down the Kemmel straight here. We'll take a long look down Kemmel. That's Halleck going to the outside. Medina playing a little bit defensive here. The road falls his way, and he's able to make the defense work on Medina. Is this a battle for third position on the racetrack here? Looking into Rivage, can't quite get the move done. Not going to be able to make a move into Jackie Ickx, so maybe you can get him going into Fanier. If not, the bus stop is the next place you can set him up.
That's probably likely for them, but here's the thing, Medina does have traffic, so he's going to get the slipstream off of Timothy Klaus here, which that's not at all what Halleck is wanting here, as Garrick is now really on the rear end of his Lambo as well.
I mean, you just saw flashing in the foreground there was the top of Ozzie Milwane's number 114 Lamborghini. Is, boy, that Halleck really washing out there as Klaus moving right out of the way. That allowed Justin Garrick to get right up, and now Halleck really putting the pressure on Medina, going through Campus and through Stavelo on the way to Blanchemont, trying to take that third position so he can get away from Garrick.
Yeah, but the thing is, he's going to have the arrow wash through Blanchemont in order to stay close here, so he's got to try to stick it in, get the front end in. He has a really big lift there, so he's not anywhere close enough. And now his next best chance is down the Kemmel straight again.
And that's why it's so difficult to pass here in the bus stop. Forget about the fact that the track narrows up so much going through there, but it's because of that arrow wash and forcing you to lift for Blanchemont. You have to lift either really, really early in order to get the run going in. As a big dive for Halleck going into La Source. A little bit of contact there on the outside of La Source, but that will allow Medina just somehow able to keep that position.
That was incredible racing there. Sorry, I was listening to the Halleck's team radio there trying to, it sounded like he was almost trying to call race control, saying he turned it on me. But Medina here, down the Kemmel straight, going defensive again.
Yep, that's a big block there from Medina. He knows he cannot afford to hemorrhage these spots right now, knowing what he has to do on this pit stop. A little bit of a wide line for Medina going through Lacombe. Halleck taking the racing line, sticking right up there with him. As we'll try to get an overhead shot here, hopefully. We'll get an overhead shot of the move going into La Source to see. No, there's no way in the world we're going to see that. No, that looks clean to me.
I thought so too. So, I mean, if you got to get the advantage, every advantage you can get there. So Medina is definitely holding these guys up. Halleck and Garrick are back in the 20s by quite a bit. So 2 seconds a lap here. And look at this.
Going into Fanier, this is a close part of the racetrack. Road's going to fall to Medina again, and he's going to just barely hold that position. Halleck, the frustration has to be setting in as he's trying to get a move going into Campus. Can't quite do it. Medina's going to hold the position. He has to be careful, though, because these are rather unique places to try to pass around here. Garrick not that far behind. His attack can turn into a defense really quick.
And this is the most frustrating part of the race when you know you have the advantage, you know you have a pace advantage, and you can't get by somebody. This is very frustrating. It has to be for Halleck here. A decent run in the bus stop here is all he needs, but he just can't get it done.
See Medina taking the defensive line. Halleck able to carry a lot more speed into the bus stop. We're riding on board with Halleck right now as they head into La Source. Medina taking the defensive line. There goes Halleck around the outside, trying to do it again, and Halleck just forces his way around the outside. What a run for the number 3 Lamborghini, but the move is not clear as Medina's still there as they head down the hill into Eau Rouge.
Oh, they're not going to go side by side, are they? Oh, my goodness, Medina.
Oh, there they are.
Maybe. Oh, my goodness. And look at Garrick here. Here he comes.
Yeah, Garrick's right in on it. He can smell the blood in the water as these two going side by side. A little bit of a bump draft from Garrick, trying to get Medina back around Halleck, but Halleck will have the inside line going into Lacombe. Boy, this is some great racing. Look how close they get through Lacombe. Medina still not done battling with Halleck.
And Halleck just has to try to get it in there, but Medina doing some supreme defensive driving. Halleck might get close. They're so close to touching.
Wow. And Medina makes the pass stick. Incredible.
Now they'll look at Halleck on the inside in the Pouhon.
Halleck got a great run going through Jackie Hicks. Now into Pouhon, still staying close. Medina did have to back off and finally surrender that position. But what a lap of racing we just saw from these two.
Now this is critical for Garrick because now Halleck is fully released now. Now Garrick has to try to get by. He has to do the exact same thing. It just seemed like Medina was not going to give him any inches there as Garrick gets a good run out of Stavolo. And look at this. Medina just lets him by.
Yeah, there's really no sense in fighting anymore. You've already let Halleck go. There's really no chance for Garrick to kind of help you the same way he did up the Kemmel Straight to kind of get that position back. And Garrick said, you know what, done. Can't wait for you. Got to go. And that's exactly what happened going through Stavolo. Halleck up to 3rd, Garrick down up to 4th, Medina down to 5th here in just this one lap.
And that the amount of battling they did destroyed their laps. Halleck's almost in the 23s with that lap. So Garrick was in the 23. So that really shows how much of that battling has affected this race here, because all of a sudden Milwain is a long ways up the road. They were almost catching Milwain at one point.
Yep, it was about 4 seconds up the road to Milwain. And Michael Lane, speaking of which, Michael Lane was about 12 seconds away from getting caught up by Brian Halleck. Granted, if there was nobody else in between, he now has a 19-second gap on Brian Halleck and Justin Garrick. So that just goes to show that bit of racing there took 8 seconds of work out of what Halleck and Garrick have been trying to do on this stint.
And you got to think Halleck, the frustration was definitely there, but now, you know, Garrick has been on the rear wing of him the entire time now. So he can't just rest. He can't just recover the tires and get them back to temp, because Garrick was able to just watch his tires at a tire time, and now his tire times are a lot cooler. He's right on the rear end of Halleck.
I mean, Garrick has caught right back up to Halleck. It was about 1.2 seconds when Garrick finally made the pass on Medina. Now it has come right back in just this one lap alone. Robert DeLoche in pit road. Brian Scrivener. Take a look at this here. This was a couple of laps ago for Scrivener. This is going through Fagnier, I believe. That high-class number 70 Porsche just took a little too much curb on the inside of the left-hander at Fagnier. Noses it into the tire wall. Not missing anything up front. Michael Lane with a 10-second lead over Ozzie Milwain at the moment. Michael Lane still setting lap times in the 19s. We'll see now with a lap 3 what Halleck and Garrick can do. Halleck runs a 19.1. Garrick an 18.7. So that Porsche certainly quicker for Garrick.
Yeah, now that they're running lap times that we said they were running beforehand. Really not that much faster, though, than Milwain there. So that's very important for Milwain's race, especially to hang on to the podium, second place. But Garrick looking pretty feisty for this podium position here. Oh, look at how wide Halleck went there.
Yep, that was a very shallow entry through Radion and a wide exit out of Kemmel. And this is going to give Garrick all the advantage that he needs. He's going to have the move done going into Lake Home. Justin Garrick might have just put himself in the perfect situation to take this win.
That was in the making for about 20 laps there. So that's a very impressive by Garrick there to make that work. So now here comes the critical phase of the race. You know, we coming up the pit stops here. Can he be able to pull this gap in on Milwain and Lane as well?
And again, there you see the pass. It was done well before they hit Lake Home. And for Justin Garrick, you're right. That's about 20 minutes, about 20 laps worth of work. The better part of 40 to 45 minutes of work just trying to get around the man who has dominated this race, Brian Halleck. And again, with the tire strategy that these guys are on, we are expecting this right here to be the battle for the lead once this next set of pit stop cycles out in the next 20 minutes or so.
So this is a very important lap here from Halleck to from Garrick to try to pull away from Halleck here, because it seems like Halleck has been more consistent with his lap times tonight. Well, Garrick looks to be faster, so if Garrick can pull away, he can afford to make some mistakes here eventually, but he's got to use these next 3 to 5 laps. Really important phase for him.
Yeah, absolutely is. Garrick, this next lap time will be more representative of what he's doing. Actually, you know what? No, give it to him. 18.4 for Justin Garrick, and this is a guy who's been able to do who did a 17.2 on that very first stint. So Justin Garrick does certainly have the pace in that car, and he's already pulled out a second lead in that Porsche over the Lamborghini of Halleck, who has been up at the front for so long, as I believe we've had a pretty big incident here as Joshua Mertz is around in the 128. That is Scrivener coming out of the bus stop, and a little bit of contact there between Scrivener in the Porsche and Mertz in the Ferrari. These two still haven't quite gotten it figured out yet. Scrivener just waiting for an open lane. He's finally got it now. Take a look and see what happened here with Scrivener coming into the bus stop. Spencer Todd behind him. Boy, just a little bit too much gas too soon for Scrivener. Behind that, Joshua Mertz, that number 23 Ferrari, clipping the grass on the... Ooh, that's a unique incident.
It looks like he didn't even realize that there's a potential possibility the Porsche is going to be there, because how often does a Porsche sit sideways in the road right there?
Oh, no, we're talking about further back from that. This is a great job by Robert Gamble. Watch this move by Gamble here. Sees that Ferrari spinning, just locks it down, just barely makes it around. As Gamble, that leading Merc, and there's Scrivener sitting backwards out of the bus stop on the main straightaway.
I think that's the second real close incident Gamble's had in this race, is it not?
Yeah, absolutely. Gamble right now still the second Merc in this race. The lead Merc is Holman. As here he is in the 199, sitting in a very quiet fifth position, just overtook Nathan Medina for that fifth position. As Medina really starting to fall backwards now. So leading manufacturers, Michael Lane naturally the leading BMW with him leading the race. Ozzie Milwane, the lead Lamborghini, sitting in second. Garrick, the lead Porsche, sitting in third. Holman, the lead Mercedes, sitting in fifth. Then you have to go all the way down to 10th to find Gerard Gilbert, who is the leading Ferrari. And the leading Audi will be Roger Shank, who's down in the 23rd position. And then the leading McLaren, Rob Courtney, sitting down in 32nd position. So he will be the fastest McLaren in the race here today. And we're going to totally ignore the fact that there is only one McLaren in the race today.
Fastest and the slowest.
Well,
Also the most average as well.
So there's Courtney with a little bit of airtime there. So I still believe we have all 36 drivers circulating this field. Ronald McPherson is coming out of pit road right now in his number 143 Lamborghini for Udox. He is sitting in last position in 36, so we do still have all 36 drivers that started this race running in this event as Ernie Ludwig comes in the number 26 BMW for Kinetic. And with that, the battles have pretty much died down here at Spa-Francorchamps. Justin Garrick has started to run away from Brian Halleck. Ozzie Milwane still 9.5 seconds off of the man you're seeing on screen right now. We're about 15 to 20 minutes away from pit stops here at Spa-Francorchamps. The final pit stop to see who will win the final endurance race of the season here for Majors. We'll be back right after this. Pit cycle has started here from Spa-Francorchamps in the final 40 minutes of this 2.4-hour event. As you just saw Ozzie Milwane leave pit road, another 2-tire stop for him, and the biggest bit of concern there for him, he was on the pit limiter all the way up through Radion.
And that almost looked like he was trying to be super conservative to make sure he didn't have a mistake there, but that's very crucial seconds that he needs to hold off Garrick and Halleck here, because they will come into pit and they are closing. They're running about the same lap times they were at the end of their first stint, 18.3s by the looks of it.
Yeah, but they're also not going to need to take 4 tires, especially if they took them on the first stint. They can certainly afford to take at least 2 tires, which means less time in the box. Joey Haynes has had another problem here on track. This is going into the bus stop as Haynes in the 338 just overshoots and ends up stopping on the racetrack to avoid a lot of people shouting at him for a bad rejoin, and then he's back off and away.
So we're about 5 laps away from Garrick, well, at least from Halleck needing to make his pit stop, as well as Lane too. So no, lap 50 is about to projected lap time. We're going to see these guys come into pit road.
And with the times that Garrick and Halleck have been putting down, remember we had talked after Garrick and Halleck had finally put the battle with Medina to bed and were able to get around him, we were saying that Michael Lane was about 19.5 seconds up. Well, wouldn't you know it, he's down to about 9 seconds up the road from both Garrick and Halleck. Oh. And those guys may have a little bit of traffic, but they are certainly flying towards him as Halleck actually overtakes Garrick going through the bus stop.
Halleck had an excellent run through Blanchimont that time. That was the best run he's had behind somebody all race by the looks of it there. So good job from Halleck to get by. Now it's Garrick, who it seems like didn't have the pace that Halleck has during this pace. Halleck was able to dip into the 17s there the lap before that.
So Halleck has turned it on here in that Lamborghini, and he is now back out in front of Justin Garrick, where he had been for a vast majority of this night. Another battle, this going into the bus stop as well. That's Chris Sherburne in the 135 Sector 5 Porsche with Gerard Gilbert in the Kinetic Racing Ferrari number 73 behind him. Ozzie Milwane is down in the 13th position now, just set the fastest second sector of the race at a 33.56, so that 114 is flying. And note, he came out about 6 seconds ahead of Nathan Medina.
So that's very important for his race to set these lap times that are halfway comparable to Garrick and Halleck here, because if he's able to stay in front of them, that's going to really help his cause, because we are projecting at the moment that Halleck and Garrick is the battle for the lead.
Michael Broomhead in the 54 has also had a problem. This is coming through Rivage. That's the 70 of Scrivener in front of him. And Scrivener losing it through Jackie Hicks and leaving Broomhead with nowhere to go. So Michael Broomhead, who has been through the wars tonight, and you can see the one big mistake that he made going into the bus stop is the cause of all the damage on the left side of that number 54 Lamborghini. And going back to the battle for what we're assuming is going to be the effective race lead here, as this is Brian Halleck and Justin Garrick, second and third at the moment. As, wow, Halleck coming in a little bit earlier than what we thought he would be coming in. And this is very akin to what we saw on the last stint as well. Halleck coming in earlier than Justin Garrick.
So this is going to be important to see if he gets out in front of Milwane here, because that's going to be indicative if actually Milwane is on the strategy to be on That's going to be interesting to see. I don't know because Milwayne hasn't been putting in. He's been putting in pretty decent lap times, but is it good enough? Oh, he's around.
Who's around?
Milwayne.
There he is. Yep, that's at Rivage. So Ozzie Milwayne pushing maybe a little too hard, knowing what he has to do. He might stay ahead of Medina going into Jackie Hicks. No, yes, he will be able to keep that position. But that right there might have sealed the deal for Ozzie Milwayne, who I'm sure guys like Justin Garrick and Jacob Mink, who actually is not here tonight, just realizing honestly, that's going to seriously help them in the point standings.
And he's going to really rue this if he comes out like within 8 to 10 seconds of Halleck here, because that's about how much time he lost there. So if Halleck comes out, in that delta, he's going to really, really not like that mistake.
I have a feeling this is going to be the Evolve slide through Rivage, and yep, that's exactly what it was. We've seen 4 Evolve cars do that exact same slide going down the hill through Rivage here tonight, and now Ozzie Milwayne is the next victim of it. Brian Halleck is back on track, and there is no shot in the world that Milwayne would have been anywhere near Halleck as Milwayne right now just coming out of the bus stop.
So interesting to see. Did Halleck even take tires then? Because that was an extremely fast pit stop.
24 seconds in the box. That's fuel only at this late stage in the race. Only need about 35 minutes worth of fuel. The thing about it is also, though, Justin Garrick is going to need even less fuel, and he's not going to take tires either, most likely, because he took all 4 on the first stop.
So, yeah, that comes to the phase of, if you're Garrick, you have to identify that he only took fuel because, if he doesn't recognize that, he takes tires, that's a good 10 seconds he's going to lose. I don't think he'll be able to get that time back.
I'm not sure either. I mean, it's late in the race. We've only got about a half hour to go, 34 minutes left here in this 2.4. Michael Lane still in this race lead as he has been this entire hour-long stint since coming in last time. Be interesting to see as well if Lane decides to take tires here. Lane did a 220 flat last circulation around the racetrack. It's Lane, Garrick, Todd, Gamble, and Sherburne the top 5. Coming into the final half hour here is David Gargaro Jr. Haven't spoken much about him in the number 42 for Vengeance Racing. He just set the fastest third sector this lap and is down in the 118.9. So Gargaro is going to need to pit again, but he's having a very good run, running in the 8th position right now, up 14 from where he started, the biggest mover of the race.
Just looking at Halleck's lap times here, and this is a very critical stage for him. He's got to push because we mentioned it. He's in a direct battle with Garrick on track, but Garrick has less fuel in the car, so he's, in theory, can push a lot harder on his tires compared to Halleck here. So this race is very far from over.
Yep, absolutely. And Garrick right now, see if he's going to come into pit road here as he heads into the bus stop chicane. We will see, does he stay to the right? No, he does not. So Garrick is going to run this car dry yet again. Michael Lane is going to do the same in the number 62. Only 2 different drivers have led here, well, 3 technically, have led here tonight. Brian Halleck, Michael Lane, and Justin Garrick, the only 3 that have led laps here tonight at Spa. Again, in what is the final endurance race of the season for the Major Series. Again, coming up on August 22nd will be the Southern 500, where the Gen 6 Cup cars, the current Gen Cup cars, will run a full-length Southern 500 at Darlington Speedway. After that, on September 12th, will be the Italian Grand Prix at Monza in the McLaren F1 car. That again coming up on the 12th of September. Then on October 3rd, it'll be the first of consecutive split division races. For those of you in the Oceanic, you will see the Phillip Island V8 race on October 3rd from Phillip Island. The Southern National 300 will be run by the European Series. And we will be broadcasting the Snowball Derby from Five Flags in the super late models on October 3rd. The second of the split weeks will be on October 24th. The Oceanic will run Super GT at Suzuka. The Formula Ford Festival is what the European Series will have. That will be at Brands Hatch. The SECA Runoffs is what we will be broadcasting on the 24th of October. That will be from Road Atlanta. And then to end out the season on November 7th, it'll be the Indy Japan 300 from Twin Ring Motegi in the 2009 Indy cars to close out what has been an absolutely fantastic season. And to go back for a second, that race at Brands Hatch, for those of you who do not know, there was a Brit car race at Brands Hatch yesterday. One of the support races at Brands Hatch had a pretty nasty accident going down the front straightaway, and car ended up flipping over the barricade and right into a marshal post. And I mean, unfortunately, one of the marshals was there, and he unfortunately did not make it through that incident. So certainly a dark day for racing at Brands Hatch, and for a track it is like walking into a time capsule when you go to Brands Hatch. It's an old track with an old track feel, as we see Spencer Todd in pit road. But there are some times where you tend to forget why most racetracks don't look like time capsules anymore, and unfortunately a situation like that comes up that has to remind you.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, incidents like that make you remember how dangerous real life motorsport is. Unfortunately, the safety advances that we have, roll cages, Hans devices, and we forget sometimes that there's marshals, feet away from all this action. And if, like you mentioned to me privately, race cars find places to crash at, and unfortunately, that was one of the cases that we had experienced on Saturday.
Yeah, and that's, we talked about it. And again, you're right. We talked about it during the break, is that you give a car enough time, they will find a place to crash that they have never crashed before. And it's only natural, because somebody's going to push a little bit too hard somewhere, and the car's going to do something it's never done before, and it's going to find a way to go somewhere it's never been. And I said it to you, the first thing I thought of was, and this might be a little off since it wasn't a fatal accident, but Jeff Gordon's crash at Las Vegas in 2009, I believe, when he had hit the pit wall where it bent out, where it bent in to allow the safety trucks onto the racetrack. As you see Michael Lane enter pit road now from the race lead. That part of the wall was not covered by a safer barrier, and a car had never wrecked there before, and it was a very, very hard hit that Jeff took that day. And that kind of goes to show a lot of wrecks at that circuit and that corner happen further down the hill, but you can never get complacent.
Motorsport, unfortunately, will just never ever be 100% safe, which I think that's the message of the day, unfortunately. Back to the race, however, Lane's in the pit lane, and this is going to be important. If I'm Lane, though, I'm not taking tires. I really am not, and I'll tell you why. Because he's in the lead, the net lead of this race still, and he's putting up lap times that were not terrible compared to Garrick. 2 seconds off. They're going to only have 25 minutes left, or about 12 laps. I would stick it out and run fuel too.
I will say, and this might change your thought, It was about 9 seconds was the gap when Halleck came into pit road from Michael Lane back to Justin Garrick. Garrick had closed that to about 3.5 in just those couple of laps. Halleck came in on lap 46. We're working lap 51 right now. So about 5 laps, he was able to close that gap down. So seeing that, I would be a little bit hesitant on taking no tires. I believe that BMW is up on the jack stands right now. You'll see Halleck flash by there. So Halleck has taken the position. Richard McClure has taken the position as well. I think Lane is going with all 4.
I'm going to guess that's probably the case. So never mind my strategy. So
so we'll see what Garrick decides to do. And again, Garrick was one of the guys that decided to take all 4 that last time through, and he's got a very comfortable lead right now of 42 seconds over Robert Gamble. However, the top 5 have not come into pit. That's Garrick, Gamble, Sherburne, Gilbert, and Covey. Those guys have not pit yet. Garrick is going to stay out another lap. Here is Gamble coming out of Fanier and into campus right now. The key is going to be, we're seeing a pit lane delta of about total time in pit lane about 2 minutes and 15 seconds is what Garrick's total time in pit lane was, or actually, yeah, I'll take that back. Halleck, because Garrick most likely isn't going to take tires, he's going to take less fuel. Halleck's total time in pit lane was 1 minute and 33.5 seconds. Halleck is only 1 minute and 15 seconds behind Garrick, so if the same thing applies, Garrick is probably going to have about a 15-second lead here, which is going to be more than enough to win this race.
the lap times, I've been watching the lap times between Halleck and Garrick, and Halleck is about half a second slower, which makes sense for the additional fuel he has on board. So really, this is going to come down to how good does Garrick do in the pit lane, really. That's what it's going to really come down to.
And Garrick is going to have to be inch perfect as Richard McClure comes into pit road. This is from P7 for McClure. So we ride on board with him as he comes down the GP pit. And with the 36 drivers, pardon me, that we've had here tonight, no need for drivers to pit up on the top of the hill, as this is Ozzie Milwane going around Maurice Gamillion into the bus stop. So that'll promote Milwane up into the 9th position, and that will also push Gamillion into pit lane in the number 44. Maurice Gamillion with 1 win this season. That came back at New Hampshire, the Musket 250. Chris Sherburne with Gerard Gilbert behind him right now. And Gilbert's done a great job to close this gap down as Justin Garrick decides to pull it into pit lane here. This is the money stop. We're going to bring the track map up. You're going to look for the number 3. He's going through Pujon right now. That is the guy that you're going to be looking for.
20 minutes left in this race, or figure at the times that they're doing, that's about 8 laps remaining. That's all that's left. So if Garrick gets behind, he's only got that much time left, and it's the same for Halleck here as well.
Yep, and that's why I always tend to pit a little bit earlier, to give myself a little bit of time to be able to make that gap up. As you're seeing, this is Halleck on screen right now, as Garrick has stopped in his box, heading down towards Blanchimont is Halleck right now. Garrick still has not stopped in his pit box. On his way down the hill, Halleck about to get into the bus stop right now. This is not going to be a slow pit stop at all for Garrick. He's not going to have to take too much fuel on board. Watch for that 31 to fill back in on the very bottom of the track map.
He's out.
As Halleck goes through La Source, the 31 of Garrick is rolling. And that is a huge lead for Justin Garrick. Halleck hasn't even hit Eau Rouge yet. He's not even at the bottom of the hill. And Garrick already halfway down Kemmel.
That is a massive advantage. That's not all lap time. That's definitely a good chunk of that has to be in the pit lane. So
18 seconds stationary for Garrick compared to Halleck's 24.4.
So all that fuel load, that's all that is. That fuel load just won the race there.
Well, it's, as long as no mistakes happen over these last 20 minutes. Now, Gerard Gilbert in the number 73 Ferrari has gotten around Chris Sherburne, and that is for the official race lead at the moment between these two. Gilbert's Ferrari, we had talked about the balance of power earlier on tonight and how the Ferrari had no weight added to it. Same as the Ford GT and same as the McLaren. That Ferrari has been working his way up, and Gilbert has had a fantastic run as the sun has come out here at Spa. Gilbert and Sherburne right now. Boy, a big wiggle there from Gilbert. Expect one or both of these guys to come in this time. Sherburne's going to come in this time in the Porsche. Looking a little bit further back, that is Robert Gamble getting overtaken by Ozzie Milwane through Pujon. Milwane, by the way, has fallen behind Spencer Todd. And you were talking about losing about 10 seconds there, Nate. That difference between Spencer Todd and Milwane right now, 9.5. So Milwane might have cost himself a podium position.
And that's not very, you get that pointed out to you. That's never anything good, but at least it's to a teammate. That's like the one minor consolidation price he might have, is that it's at least to a teammate that he has lost his position to.
And it's a teammate that had done the same thing. He was the first of the Evolve guys to go sliding through Rivage earlier on tonight. Spencer Todd able to recover quite nicely into a podium position, or a projected podium position. Has to get around Chris Sherburne right now. Sherburne in the box. As there goes Todd around, as Gerard Gilbert heading into Pujon right now is a 9-second advantage over Garrick. And there he is. As this field has been lapped up to the 10th position, or up to the 15th position, pardon me, and Joey Haynes right now. Talking about Haynes earlier being all the way down in the 32nd position with the fortunate timing of his mistake and his big hit at Pujon. He's not needed to pit. He's back up into 15th now, so a very good recovery for him, barring a pit stop.
Remember how we talked about the weather all day, basically?
Yeah.
And how it was going to change?
Yeah.
It never did. Still at 65 on the air, 67 on the track temp. The wind has stayed the same. Humidity stayed the same, so the fog is still around. So much for us talking about it's going to change. Well, commentator's curse, I guess.
Well, first of all, we've never claimed that we were weathermen here. And number two, you just put that down to the unpredictability of the Ardennes forest.
There you go.
That it stayed solid, and we don't look nearly as bad now. As that right there was the pass for the race lead. So Justin Garrick officially holding the race lead here at the 2.4 hours of Spa with just over 16 and a half minutes to go. Brian Halleck, the man who dominated the first stint of this race, now in second, and Halleck at the moment running lap times 1.3 seconds slower then Justin Garrick. Garrick set a 2:18.4 last time by. Halleck a 2:19.7. So we'll take a look at the lap time history there. That lap 53 again is the pit stop for Garrick, so you can kind of wipe that away. As Garrick has been quicker all the way around than Brian Halleck here over these last 5 or 6 laps.
Yeah, at this point, you just have to bring the car home and try not to make any mistakes. But this is the point of the race where you're like, all right, my body's tired. I mean, they've done 2.5 stints. I mean, I don't know how many stints you did, the 24, but I did 3 full stints, and my body was hurting afterwards.
I did a total of, over our 3 attempts, I did a total of 7. I did 3 the first attempt and then 2 in the 2 subsequent attempts after that. But after the 3, honestly, I said to the team, I'm not used to this whole multi-driver thing. We had started in 21st and had gotten up to 3rd. I didn't want to get out of the car. My body was saying, you're done, stop, but I did not want to get out of the car. We were doing so good. And then going through the bus stop, just as I was about to hand the car off, we saw what Michael Broomhead did earlier. I wasn't kidding when I said I clipped the grass and jumped that curb, ended up flipping it, and that was ball game, and I was very, very upset with myself after that one.
That's how quickly things can happen here. I mean, we saw earlier in this race how little tiny mistakes, especially from those Evolve guys, just down there and just looping the car, just one little tiny mistake has kind of prevented them from being a lot closer towards the front.
Absolutely, and we're looking at Robert Gamble right now. The reason why we're looking at him is that he now finally is the lead Mercedes. Running in the 4th position is that number 48, a fantastic run for Gamble as he's trying to chase down and pass Ernie Ludwig here, and will going into the bus stop, or at least attempt to. There we go, now he makes the pass completed. Ozzie Milwane 3.7 seconds behind him. Chris Sherburne there as well. Milwane has fallen behind Robert Gamble, as a matter of fact. We'll try to see where that pass took place. This was back 2 laps ago. I think, yep, Milwane got a slowdown coming out of Radion and was forced to allow Gamble back around. Chris Sherburne in the 135 Porsche. He has Nathan Medina chasing him up the hill. Michael Lane not that far behind. Michael Lane dominating the middle stint of this race. Took 4 tires and fuel on his pit stop on lap 50. We're working lap 56 right now. Michael Lane down the 8th position. Gerard Gilbert not that far behind. In 9th, he has Joseph Holman behind him in 10th. Oh, and around goes. Actually, Gilbert going around. So Gerard Gilbert in that number 73 Ferrari. Not sure what that was there. That looked like he may have caught too much curb. Take a look and see.
Oh.
Caught too much curb on the left side. Nope, too much on the right side. Ran out wide.
Yeah, just straight understeered by the looks of it. Like they didn't have a brake pedal almost. Because he doesn't even, he just gets on the gas way too early.
So Gerard Gilbert trying to push that Ferrari for everything it was worth has now dropped him out of the top 10. That promotes David Gargaro Jr. into the top 10 with 11 minutes to go. Gargaro with Joseph Holman in front of him. This is Joey Haynes just moments ago. Haynes going into the bus stop. Solid might. I don't know if he's going into pit road. Rob Courtney also followed him into pit road.
And Medina has just given Sherburne a love tap out of the bus stop there.
And we're back live here with that battle. You can see Michael Lane not that far behind and catching rapidly on these two. And a little bit of pride to go on, not just for position between Nathan Medina and Michael Lane. These two also battling to be the lead BMW in the race here tonight. Medina all over the back of Sherburne right now. Sector 5 versus Vengeance. Medina goes to the outside, side by side going into Lake Home. And big power move there by Medina. Gets the job done. So Medina around the outside of Lake Home takes the position. And that will move the number 6 into position number 6.
And like you said, Lane is coming at a rapid pace. He is in the 17s here, so now it's a question of does Sherburne use team tactics and let Lane go by to try to get Medina here for an extra 2 spots.
And that was the fastest lap of the race for Michael Lane, a 2:18 flat. At least what my timing and scoring says. For
Just
that
2
number
thousandths
62.
quicker than an 18. Just a 17.998.
Well, there you go. Either way, it's his best lap of the race, and only the 3rd driver on the night to dip down into the 17-second bracket, the 2-minute 17 bracket. Justin Garrick and Halleck, the only other 2 that have been able to eclipse the 118s, the 218s, my goodness, and get down into the 217s. Actually, scratch that. The 4th driver, Milwane, is the 3rd. Milwane still trying to chase down Robert Gamble, as we are now down under 10 minutes to go here in this race. Just behind him, Lane is all over Sherburne right now.
And there it is.
Yep, there he goes, and Sherburne just lets him go. I mean, when Michael Lane proves by going 2 seconds quicker that last lap, I mean, that's no contest right there.
That's a pretty easy decision if you're in the team to say, hey, let me by, I'm quicker.
But now between Medina and Lane is the 75 of Morrison, but he will not be there for long. It's that Lamborghini entry for Howler. Currently running down in the 27th position. Take a look back up towards the front here. This is Justin Garrick leading this race. And I believe about to get what would be his 3rd win of the season. Yep, it will be his 3rd win of the season. Garrick has won all 3 of his races in the endurance category of racing this season. I believe Daytona and the Nürburgring, if I remember correctly. You've got class wins in both of those events. And now in the final endurance race of the season, looking to tack on his 3rd win in this single class endurance race, and he's got nobody around him right now.
Yeah, you can just cruise around and kind of just say, hey, it's my race to win. I'm just going to run it in a lean fuel mixture just to make sure it messes up the fuel. Not going to make any mistakes. When you have a 16.5-second lead, you can afford to do that.
Looking at about 3 or 4 more laps to go here. Brian Halleck, however, is in a very different situation. He's got drivers all over him. Currently running 17 seconds behind race leader Justin Garrick and running quite a bit slower. Now, granted, he has been in traffic these last couple of laps, but the last time around, Halleck 1.7 seconds slower than the race leader. Spencer Todd is a further 28 seconds behind Brian Halleck. And a very good recovery drive again. Todd, one of the first ones of that Evolve team to spin right here in Rivage, and has been able to recover all the way up to a third position. Robert Gamble trying to avoid coming under fire from Ozzie Milwane, who's only 1.4 seconds behind him. Oh, that's Michael Lane! Or no, that wasn't Michael Lane. It was another one of the Sector 5 BMWs.
Paulson.
Stephen Paulson. Yep, there he is, the 322. Let's take a look and see what happened to Paulson. Coming through Rivage. Oh, that's just too much gas too early. It was a hard hit into that Armco that Paulson took. Stephen Paulson running in the 19th position. Lost a couple of spots there. Lost one certainly to Joey Haynes and Ernie Ludwig. So he'll go from at least 17th to 19th on that incident, possibly. Don't necessarily remember where he was. Might have also lost to Robert Deloche as well. Currently sits in 16th. So we'll take a look as this battle here over the next 4.5 minutes is looking like it's going to be good here between Robert Gamble and Ozzie Milwane. And we've seen Milwane in a couple of spicy battles here tonight. As Gamble trying to hold on to that 4th position. Not really much danger behind them as Nathan Medina sitting 7.5 seconds off of them, off of these two. But with 4 minutes to go and looking like it's going to be another 3 laps, Justin Garrick has absolutely checked out. And now the battle up the hill into Lake Combe. Game, set, and match. Milwane to 4th.
The gap behind in 6th place there. Looks like Medina has started to actually pick up the pace again because he is matching Lane's lap times there. Lane's still around the 18-second mark, that even 18, but not quite. Got to prove just slightly bit more if he wants to get there.
Yep, that is another battle closing in. Only 1 second between these two. Medina 218, my goodness. A 218.23. That was his fastest lap of the race. Michael Lane just shy of his fastest lap of the race. Another 118 flat that last time through, so Lane still closing in on that BMW of Medina. And with 3 minutes to go, Garrick has just crossed the line again, so we're going to see 2 more circulations of this Spa-Francorchamps circuit before we declare a winner for what will be the final endurance race of the 2021 season here for the Major Series.
And you know what? The track temp is actually rising. It raised a whole degree, Frank.
No way.
Yeah,
and
crazy,
the humidity's gone down by 1% as well. So dramatic shifting in track conditions here as we just hit 8 a.m. in sim time. Fog's starting to lift very marginally here at Spa. And this is typically, well, maybe in a year's time we'll be saying, and here's where the rain comes. Michael Lane, go ahead.
I was about to say that will be one of the things in iRacing that you will either love as a driver or you will absolutely hate, because it'll change up strategies so much in these races. It'll be incredible.
Oh, and just imagine it. Just imagine it just absolutely bucketed down with rain right now. As I think, oh nope, that's not Ozzie Milwane. That's Joey Haynes on the inside, slowing down, letting these two go. Just imagine if it absolutely starts bucketing rain now and you have to make the choice. Do I run one lap on slick tires in wet conditions, or do I risk it and see who decides to come in and go on to wet weather tires? That's going to throw another complete curveball into a race like this.
Is this Garrick's last lap here?
No, yes, this will be Garrick's last lap. So coming to the white flag here is Justin Garrick. Should be coming to the white flag here. It's what I'm expecting at least. So Justin Garrick has opened this lead up, by the way. Brian Halleck has been stuck in traffic this entire final half hour that he's been running here. Just did a lap 2 seconds slower last time by. Now only about a half a second slower as he gets around his teammate Maurice Camillion going into La Source. Michael Lane trying to catch up to Nathan Medina with everything he can. He's got one more lap to do it. Here in this number 62, trying to get up into the 6th position. Medina, will see. It doesn't look like they're going to be able to get anything going into the bus stop. Medina with a little bit of a defensive line on entry there. Doesn't hurt him through the bus stop. So Medina will hold on for at least another moment as time officially expires here on the session. Take a look down the hill here. If Michael Lane's going to pass him, this is going to be by far and away his best chance to get this move done for the 6th position. Both of these guys get a very good run. That's the 70 of Scrivener off at the side of Kemmel, and I don't think... Oh, actually, you know what? I'll take that back. Michael Lane does have quite a good run, but it's not going to be enough, just barely not enough.
Oh,
and
my goodness.
Off circuit goes Michael Lane, and that might seal the deal for the 6th position. But coming through the final bit of this circuit, coming through Blanchimont for what we're assuming is the final time, into the bus stop chicane, Justin Garrick. Patience, patience, patience all day long. His patience and pitch strategy pays off. Justin Garrick wins the 2.4 hours of Spa-Francorchamps. His 3rd win of the season, his 3rd endurance win of the season, and a big boost to his championship hopes going into the Southern 500 in a couple of weeks. Brian Halleck will come home in the 2nd position after taking pole, leading the entirety of the first stint, holding effective race lead for almost the entirety of the 2nd stint, comes home in 2nd after pitch strategy fails him. Here comes Spencer Todd, who again, after a spin at Rivage, recovers nicely to round out the podium in the 318 for Evolve. And now the battle. Yep, now the battle. Michael Lane versus Nathan Medina. And Medina looks as though he is just going to hold on. Milwane 4th, Gamble 5th. Medina and then Lane come home 6th and 7th. One more battle of consequence coming up to the line. That is Ernie Ludwig, who's going to hold off Javier Torres. That will be for 18th position. And that will be the final battle of consequence as Justin Garrick puts on one heck of a show. And again, it had to be patience all night long. Did just that. What a run for the number 31.
And we talked about it all night long there about how the strategy was eventually going to come back to those two. And he just played it perfectly, staying out a little bit longer, being able to use that advantage of taking less fuel in that final pit stop to really good effect.
Yep, absolutely, and was able to do just that. And also with that Porsche being able to stay out a couple of laps longer than everybody else on that first stint is another thing that really helped him. Because if it wasn't for that, again, he was about 5 seconds adrift off of Brian Halleck going into that first pit stop, and that really helped be able to recover that time that he lost to the three, and they were connected at the hip pretty much the entirety of that second run, and that's what allowed him to get out in front in the third and final stint.
Yeah, that was impressive work by Garrett and Halleck there because they never put a wheel wrong. Awesome racing there with Medina there, especially there in that stage race. That would be a really good thing to be able to send in iRacing there for one of their top moments of the month there. Be a good way to kick it off in August, especially with the way that race went there.
Yep, absolutely, and that was one of the better battles that we had seen all race long. As we'll try to see if we can get a word in with our top three. As while we wait, let's take a look at the results here for tonight's race, Nate. An incredible run here at Spa all night long. We'll go to the official results for tonight's race as Justin Garrick will take his third win of the season by 21.5 seconds over Brian Halleck. Spencer Todd rounds out the podium. Ozzie Milwane and Robert Gamble come home in the top five. Nathan Medina, Michael Lane, Chris Sherburne, Joseph Homan, and David Gargaro Jr. round out the top 10. Robert Covey, Gerard Gilbert, Richard McClure, Bryson Schutte, and Maurice Gamillion round out the top 15. Robert Deloche, Joey Haynes, Ernie Ludwig, Javier Torres, and Stephen Paulison round out the top 20. Maurice Gamillion in the 15th position, the first car to not finish on the lead lap here tonight.
And Aaron Greer here finished in the 21st position alongside Greg McKinney. There, Timothy Klaus, we talked about him a little bit there. He came home in the 23rd position with Roger Shank. He had his off earlier in the race as well, came home 24th. Brian Schervener, he came home in the 25th position. He's the first car that was 2 laps down. Jeremy Morrison, he came home in 26th. Jonathan Diggs came home in the 27th position. Joshua Mertz, we talked about, he had a couple of incidents. He's the first car 3 laps down in the 28th position, a lot with Don Dolson as well. Andrew Malinowski, he came home in the 30th position. Matt Gilder, he came home in 31st. Rob Courtney, he came home in 32nd position, 9 laps down. Michael Broomhead, he came home in the 33rd position. Andy Spicer, unfortunately, we talked a lot about him, not for the ones on the track going straight. He came home in the 34th position. Ron McPherson, he came home in 35th. And James Daughtry, 21 laps down is the last of our classified finishers in the 36th position tonight.
And no DNFs, at least from what I saw here at Spa. And right now we will get to our race winner here. That would be Justin Garrick. And Justin, you had an incredible night here tonight. It was patience, patience, patience behind Brian Halleck for the first 2 stints, and then it was the last pit stop that got you a mile ahead of him.
Yeah, thanks a lot. That was early on. I kind of had a bit of a trouble finding rhythm. I wanted to keep up with Brian, but just didn't quite have the pace. A few guys got around me, but yeah, I just mid part of the race tried to just save my tires, keep them towards the end. Because I took tires on my first stop. I figured I got to make them last an hour 25 now. So.
And you certainly did. Now, going into this race, was there any hesitancy taking the Porsche, seeing how much weight iRacing added to these added to the Porsche? Not only that, but there was also some power stripped away from the Porsche as well. Was there any hesitancy taking this car, or did you know you'd be able to overcome?
I didn't know if I'd be able to overcome, but I definitely wanted to drive this car. It's been, for me, the most fun GT3 to drive. Did it with the Spa 24 last week, or a couple weeks ago with the endurance team. So I didn't want to switch cars that quickly, but yeah, I had a lot of fun driving it though. So
how'd you finish? in the 24?
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you're
Not,
good.
no, we did not finish actually.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It's one of those races, but
We didn't finish our first two, so that's fine. Going into the next race, we have 3 weeks off. We head then to the track Too Tough to Tame at Darlington Raceway in Darlington, South Carolina, in the current A class Cup car right now. What is your confidence level going into Darlington, and how do you feel knowing that you've won 3 of these endurance races?
well, it's pretty cool to know I've taken home 3 wins so far this season. But oval, something I got to work on for sure. It's not my strong suit, but I did take the car out a couple days ago at Darlington. Really fun track to lap, but we'll see how the race goes.
It'll certainly be a fun night. 267 laps, if I remember correctly. There. Anybody you want to thank before we let you go and celebrate another endurance victory?
Everyone over at High Class. Looks like I had some. There's some. Looks like I had a fan in the chat on the stream. So and Majors and you guys as well, obviously. So have a good night.
We appreciate that. Thank you very much. Justin Garrick, your race winner here tonight. Congratulations. All right, and so that was your race winner, Justin Garrick. We will go next to our second place finisher. That would be one Brian Halleck. And Nate, you are with him right about now.
Brian, Nate here in the ESBN booth. You got a copy, good sir?
Yes, sir. Thanks.
Well, let's talk about first the racing there with Garrick there. It looks like you two were neck and neck basically all race long. You led most of that, but it seemed like your downfall was pitting a little bit too early there in that last pit stop, having to take more fuel and coming out behind Garrick. Talk us through what was the idea behind the pit strategies tonight on your end.
You guys nailed it. That last one, there's a couple names that were in front of me that I did not want to tussle with, some back markers, and there was, I think, 3 of them. And I said, you know what? I don't want to deal with them. I'm going to take the gas that I think I need to get to the end here now. But I, need to trust my fuel count because I think I added an extra lap and then it turned into 2 extra laps. And so Justin spent like 8 or 9 seconds less than I did in the pit lane, and he had, of course, the benefit of running a little longer with a little less fuel, being lighter. And once we came out of the pit cycle, he just had me by 10 seconds. But you're right, we were darn close for the full race up until that point. But that was my thinking: was I got a lot of guys I do not want to be around, and I'd rather just pit now and come out a little clear track.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Frank, but I believe we said 6 seconds was the difference. Is that correct?
Right around there, yeah.
Okay, that's what I thought. So speaking of tussling, I mean, we had an incredible battle for about 3 laps with you, Garrick, and Medina. Probably something that would probably qualify for the top moments on iRacing. It was incredible to see you guys side by side for the majority of those 2 laps there. Talk us through your experience there in that battle.
I wasn't thrilled about it. I don't know if you guys hear the radio, but Mr. Medina told Ozzy to go on by because his tires were shot. And then when I came up behind him with Justin Garrick behind me, he battled me for 5 laps, throwing some blocks, and we banged doors once or twice. And I'm like, dude, like, come on. We got tires. You just let someone go right by. And I finally got by him, and it was, we got by him. I knew we would, but it took a long time, and we dropped like a lot of time. Garrick then was able to go right by him because, again, he just opened the door for him. So I felt like I was being singled out for some reason. He let the guy in front of me go by, and then the guy behind me straight on by, waved him on through, literally said on the mic, hey, my tires are gone, just go on by. But he gave me a heck of a battle. It was fun, but I thought it was a little unnecessary personally, but it is what it is.
Do you think there's a reason behind it, perhaps, or do you think it was just one of those cases where he realized the battle wasn't worth it at that point, or do you think it was he's singling you out specifically?
I'm not sure the reason. I think it's probably the latter because, again, he was on the mic to other teams saying, go on by. People who were, P3 at the time, like it wasn't back markers or anything like that. So I wasn't happy, but, we got through it. But Justin and I, he passed me once. I had kind of a slow Radion, and he got by me. It wasn't a slowdown, but he got by me. And then later, maybe in the lap, I kind of dive bombed him through the last chicane because I was using a back marker as a kind of a lead block, and that was a lot of fun. So we actually did pass each other on track once each. That was a lot of fun, but I was talking to the guys in the waiting room. My goal tonight was not to get a slowdown because I felt like if I did that, I was going to win the darn thing. I accomplished that goal, but I did get P2. I'll take it, but I didn't get a single slowdown through El Rouge. And it's just killer when you get that. And I was able to do that, but it was a lot of fun.
Well, awesome result for getting on the podium tonight. Not quite converting the pole to win, but anyway, would you like to congratulate or thank anybody on your podium tonight?
Yeah, sure. I appreciate that. We had a special paint on our Lambos tonight, all white. So our sponsors got a little short shrift there, but Rethread Clothing Company and Major's Garage, thank you for them. And then all the guys on the team, they're very supportive. Lots of fun to hang out with them, and it gets me on here to practice, and it just makes me better. So thanks to all of them.
Well, thank you, Brian. Appreciate the time here afterwards. We'll see you in about 3 weeks' time for the Southern 500. Thank you, Brian, and have a good night.
Thanks.
All right, so that was your second place finisher here tonight, Brian Halleck. And in just a moment, we will be joined by our third place finisher. That would be Spencer Todd. And right now, we will bring him in as Spencer. You had a very good run, a little early mistake that a lot of, not only you, but a lot of your teammates made going down Rivage, made it early enough and were able to recover to a nice third place finish.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
So tell us about your race, trying to work your way back after that little mistake, and just a lot of traffic to have to contend with, and then you made a couple of very well timed pit stops and got yourself into where you finished.
Yeah, not sure if I know the mistake you're talking of, but I thought I ran a pretty mistake-free race. No
Oh, you did?
slowdowns. Yeah, no, I was pretty much heads down most of the time, just clawing my way back from a 14th place starting spot. Didn't have a great quali. Had a little bit of difficulty running in the dark, but nonetheless, made my way through.
I might be mistaken because there were about 3 or 4 evolved cars that ended up sliding in Rivage, and I thought you were the first of them, but I could very well be mistaken, which is not a long shot for me on one of these broadcasts. But
yeah, thank you though. Yeah, no, it wasn't me.
okay,
I'm not sure who it was.
okay. So anyway, going through this race, how the first pit stop, you kind of figured it's going to be you're going to run it dry. How did you want to split that last segment up? Did you try to split it up 45-45, or did you kind of want to feel as though you wanted to just run it dry and then just run a little bit of time left?
Yeah, so I was in a pretty decent battle with Gamble and Sherburne out there, and we were kind of trading laps back and forth. I did a little here, they did a little there, and I knew I had to do something a little bit off strategy. And so on my first stop, I took a little less fuel. I clipped it down a few, and then I figured that would give me some clear tracks so that I put my head down and click off some clean laps, and that's what I did. And I was able to hop Gamble, and then I didn't look back after that. So.
You certainly did not. And looking ahead now, we head to Darlington, South Carolina for the Southern 500. What are your thoughts going into Darlington? How do you think you're going to handle it?
I'm looking forward to driving some newer gen NASCARs. Don't dabble in a lot of oval stuff myself usually, but yeah, the team has a lot of fun preparing for those races. So I know right after tonight we'll be getting right to it. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Anybody you want to thank before we let you go and celebrate a podium finish at Spa?
Yeah, just the boys at Evolve for the coaching, the setup. Guys put in a lot of time. Also, a couple sponsors that make it all possible. Tranco Production Machines and Direct Innovations LLC. So just thanks to those guys, and also thanks to you guys, for the great broadcast coverage as always.
Thank you very much. Your third place finisher tonight, Spencer Todd. Congratulations, bud.
Thank you.
All right, so Nate, that will round out the interview portion of the night, and another great showing here at Spa. I know we've mentioned it a couple of times. With this being the final endurance race of the season, it's a lot of oval races. I think we got 3 ovals and 2 road races left on the calendar, and these oval races are going to be big. Again, with the Southern 500 to it's the next round in 3 weeks. The Indy Japan to close out the season. So big oval races coming up, and Spa was a very good chance for a lot of these road guys to try to get as many points as they possibly could before we hit those big oval races, and I think most of them took full advantage tonight.
Yeah, you could definitely tell who really needed the points tonight and who got the points tonight. Garrick doing a good job getting as many points as he can in the points chase. Like you mentioned, we talked about it a bit tonight. It'll be interesting to see what the points are afterwards, especially coming into the Southern 500. It'll be a great race, that is too. But I think people are tired of Spa. I think people were trying to get this race done as quickly as possible so that they would not have to see this track for quite some time, probably for another 11 months or so.
It's been a long week at Spa, whether it be here on the iRacing service or whether it be in real life with the Spa, the 24 hours of Spa, both being last week and yesterday. So with that will pretty much run down the rest of the broadcast here tonight. Coming up for the remainder of the week here on ESPN, off tomorrow, so no Rowdy Energy Cup Series race tomorrow. However, there will be a doubleheader coming at you on Tuesday and Wednesday for the MX5 Pro. The MX5 Pro Series will be the first of the races to kick off. That will be at 2:50 p.m. Eastern Time from the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal. Then the nightcap for Tuesday night will be the Western States Racing League. They will be at Kansas, a 10:05 p.m. Eastern Time start. Coming up on Wednesday will be the Sim Racers Edge Alpha Series. They will be at Watkins Glen for their 4th race of the season. That race will be starting at 8:15. 10 minutes after that, the Endurance for Amateurs Series will run. I believe it will be round number 9 for them at Imola. So that will be a fun. Oh, I'm sorry, it's round 7 at Imola. Coming up on Thursday will be the TNT Truck Series. That will be at Phoenix, round 10 of their season at the Phoenix Raceway. Incredible series. If you've not seen that, that's one you should highly check out. And then coming up on Friday will be round number 2 for the Circle B Diecast Super Speedway Series. They will be at Talladega in the Xfinity cars for the 2nd race of their season. So for my broadcast partner, Nate Siefker, I am Frank Marchese. Thank you very much for making us a part of your evening. We will see you on Tuesday for the MX5 Pro Series from Montreal, and we will see you in 3 weeks' time for the next time we see the major series here on ESPN from Darlington Raceway in Darlington, South Carolina. Have a fantastic evening, everybody.